Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour, episode 51. I've caught up with the number again. Um, I'm here today with Pete from
Hello.
Ponderings of Pete. Really had to stretch the muscles there for the title, didn't you?
Yeah, it took me a little bit. I originally had just my name, and then nobody could spell it because it's weird. Um, and it led to a lot of confusion. And then eventually, I had the dawn of, oh, maybe I could just do this.
So
Uh,
wait, what is Pete for Peter?
yeah,
Okay.
but it's my last name that gave people some trouble. It's a last name that has a couple of different spellings for it, depending on where you're from, depending on like where you're from and some other stuff.
Were you like Icelandic or something?
No, it's I think it's base Polish.
Oh,
I could be wrong. It's not like one of those crazy names. Like it's Polish filtered through Britain, filtered through America. But like I don't know if it's Polish actually. We'll just call it British-ish, but it's not like typical.
all right then.
It's complicated. My
Um, oh,
great grandfather was a mutt
oh, okay.
of northwestern Europe.
Oh, all right. So, um, you've dabbled in BookTube anyway. I see you haven't posted a bit, and
No.
I see you a lot on the Allen Discord. So you're like, are you in like the cult of Allen, if you want?
Cult of Allen, Cult of Sanderson. There's a lot of cults. It's fine.
Yeah, I would love to have Allen on at some point because every time I watch him, I'm like, oh God, is this guy who I'm going to be when I'm in my 40s? And I think about it, and I'm like, probably.
Do do you
Uh,
have Asperger's or?
I do. Yeah, I
Oh,
do.
okay.
Yeah, I, which is hilarious because I'm like, wow, this guy's kind of like me. It's kind of
I
scary.
mean,
And then he's like,
that's
I have Asperger's. I'm like, okay, whoa, hold on a second, buddy.
I mean, as role models go, Alan's a good one in my opinion.
No, yeah, no, I like Alan's channel. He just hasn't been posting a lot recently, or maybe he has. I've been bad at keeping up with everyone.
Oh, I feel you. This is one of my disappointments of where I'm at right now is I don't watch that much BookTube nowadays. I keep up with maybe one or two or three channels ish,
Mhm.
but and that's also why I haven't been posting. I've been reading and I've been talking in Discord, but a lot of other things have been distracting me, and I want to get back to posting. I have like three different videos filmed that I just need to edit, but
Yeah, but you've been on a couple of shows. I think you've been on Alan's channel. I think a few times.
yeah, that's the easiest thing to do is just be like get on and talk. I mean, that's the part that this is like the part that I enjoy sitting down and talking with people.
You
Um,
were on Tori's Motley Crew. Like, how does that work? Because I was like, because I'm trying to get her on my show at the moment, and it's really tough because things just keep getting in the way. It's kind of like it's the same. I don't know if you've watched Mike's book reviews, but it's the same thing with him. Like, it is hard pinning him down for a day to get them to come on. And I see
I mean,
why. I bet they're just busy with stuff. And
yeah, Tori, I guess just kind of worked out. I mean, that again, that wasn't me. That was more like on her because of like just because like it was her channel, so it just worked out that way.
I like the conversation though. It was good. I think I was there the majority of it.
I think you were, yeah, because I know you show up a lot of the time when I see you a lot on the live shows that I'm on.
Yeah, I like Tori's channel a lot.
Yeah, Tori's
So
awesome.
yeah, she's good people. She's always been nice to me when when we've talked anyway.
Yeah, she's really good people.
Or talked. We were on I just messaged her on Discord.
Hey, that's modern day talking for you, right?
Yeah, her Dear Writer video was also very helpful for my own excursions. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
it's good
Yeah,
stuff. It's good stuff.
she's got some good thoughts in that noggin that are interesting to explore.
Yeah, I even responded to one of her videos and she was pretty nice about that. So, yeah. Cuz I was like, I hope she doesn't she doesn't seem like the type who takes stuff too personally. And I was like, mm. but yeah, Pete, you do stuff on YouTube, and you're around. You're around in the booktube circles.
I'm just around. That's all I am. Is I'm around right now.
So like what are some books that really get you going? Because that's usually what I
Lately,
ask the booktubers about.
lately it's been a lot of Tchaikovsky and Cicero.
Oh,
So
so you've been reading a lot of Roman stuff, I see.
a little bit. I read Augustus like 2 years ago now, and then Alan did his read along for the Cicero trilogy, and I didn't participate in that because I was like, historical fiction, it's not fantasy, and like I have all these other books that I want to read. And then Anita and Alan are like, dude, you should have read this. And then at one point, Alan was like, I thought you did read this, which is like one of those, like, you would have liked this signs sometimes. Um, but yeah, so I picked it up because I heard a lot about how good it was at that point in time. And a lot of people were like, you should read it. And it's really good. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I'm about to start Kindred soon
Oh, that's really good.
from Octavia Butler. She's one of
I
those sci-fi authors, kind of like Ursula K. Le Guin or Robert Zelazny, or not Robert, Roger Zelazny, who I've wanted to try for a very long time. Just haven't gotten around to it. And also, my friend Darko, he just started a channel called Kindles and Kicks. He's like, "Yo, could we read it together?" And I'm like, "All right, yeah, whatever." So that just worked out.
Yeah, that's how they work. Kindred is such a huge gut punch. I love that book.
Yeah, hold on. Let me just get it out real quick. Here's my copy. So,
Yeah, it's the one
bam.
I
Yeah.
somewhere up there. I don't know where it is.
Yeah. Also about to start The Crossing from Cormac McCarthy too. So, you
Old,
know,
old Cormac McCarthy.
yeah, he's one of my favorite authors, and it's kind of funny seeing a lot of the fantasy booktubers be like, "Wow, this Cormac McCarthy guy's amazing," and there I am just sitting in the background going, you know.
I do all along.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was kind of like when everyone was hyping up Stranger Things season 4, and I was all like, "You motherfucker!" I was there from the beginning. Okay, you guys were complaining from season 2. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm a
season 2 and 3
true
have
fan.
get a bad rap. I don't think I haven't watched season 4 yet because I've been like bouncing around different streaming services. Because
Yeah,
I
I
don't
know,
want
dude. I have so many
to.
streaming
So
services. Oh my god, it
yeah,
overwhelms you after a while.
yeah. I just gotta cut back. That's all. So whenever I switch back over to Netflix from wherever I am now, I think I'm on Max right now and trying to watch at least some Miyazaki movies, among other things. So
Yeah, I've seen Spirited Away, which I love. I adore that film.
nice.
And Princess Mononoke, which admittedly I don't know if I got it. I was kind of like,
So
okay.
I watched like half of Prince of Howl's Moving Castle at a friend's house. I watched Castle in the Sky because I love the concept. And then I'm like 3/4 of the way through Princess Mononoke, and I need to go back and finish it because just watching TV and movies is hard for me right now. And then
Yeah,
I
same
watched
here.
Boy and the Heron recently, which I went to the movie theater with some friends.
You watched what?
Boy and the Heron, the one that just came out.
Oh yeah.
That
Dude.
was the weirdest depiction of grief I've ever seen.
Yeah,
But it
my
worked.
friend Jason saw it, and he's not really a anime-ish. And to be fair, I'm not the biggest anime guy myself. I mean, I like Cowboy Bebop and
Yeah.
Spirited Away and Death Note, and I like Naoki Urasawa, and that's kind of it in terms of like anime content. But he was like, yeah, it's kind of Spirited Away-ish, and I'm like, okay, like I love that film. Also, I heard Robert Pattinson, who is unrecognizable. Are you sure that was even him?
Voice actors are an interesting thing.
I'm like, man, like he's almost he was the Heron, wasn't he? If I remember right.
I do not know, which is a good thing.
Fair enough.
So I'm not saying, oh, the Heron is just Batman.
I think Pattinson also gets a bad rep because he did Twilight. Though
Oh yeah,
I think that's going away now since he did Batman
but
and The
like the thing
Lighthouse, which is
is,
also a fantastic film. And
yeah, I've seen some clips of the Lighthouse, and I was really impressed with his range on that.
also Good Time was really really good, or at least
Okay.
I enjoyed it a lot. It's a very
Yeah.
stressful film. Oh, I don't recommend just watching it. You're just like,
Yeah, when they announced Robert Pattinson as Batman, I was skeptical for those reasons because I had only had exposure to him in Twilight. I didn't watch some of the other stuff, but I watched some people that were relatively authoritative on it, and I heard some arguments about why he could be a good Batman, and why he had like the range for it or whatever you want to say.
hmm,
And I was like, okay, cool. So I was never like negative on him as Batman per se, but I started out skeptical, became positive, and then I think the Batman was a really good film. I have a few friends that are like, oh my gosh, that was terrible. I want Christian Bale back.
really?
But yeah, but they're Christian Bale stands,
I was about
and
to
I'm
say I have some issues with that film, or I have some issues with his performance as Batman. But then again, I'm a big Batman fan, so
Mhm.
I'm a little picky about that stuff.
Yeah. I think Pattinson is my favorite portrayal of Batman because it actually,
Hello
well,
and
Bale kind of does that, but I feel like it portrays the human and hopeful side of Batman a little bit more, or the human.
I'll give you that. Yeah.
Of the
Now I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
You're good.
I should note that I don't hate Bale's, but like I don't make fun of it as much as other people do. I did have some issues. Like I never really bought that he was like obsessed with being Batman, but I did
We're talking
really
about Bale or Pattinson.
what
We're talking about Bale or Pattinson.
I'm talking about Bale.
Okay, cool. I was talking about Pattinson.
Oh, sorry.
You're good.
Um. But I do love that he really captured that more human part of Batman rather than just, I'm vengeance and he's like beating people. Because,
Yeah,
Batman's kind of a maniac.
yeah. I think this is the first Batman. I mean, we haven't had that many Batmans, but I think they could set Pattinson up for a Robin really well.
Could be good.
With some of the things that were kind of teased about who he was. I have a friend that really wants Killer Croc in the next one, and I agree. Like with the whole flooding of Gotham.
That would be
Spoilers.
fun. I would love to see Scarecrow as a main villain. I mean, I really enjoyed um, Oppenheimer. Damn it, Cillian
Mhm.
Murphy as Scarecrow, but man, I would really love to see him as like a main villain. I think you could. Also, I really like Scarecrow, so there you go. I might be a little biased there.
You want to see Scarecrow's biplane on the big screen?
Well, maybe not that, but maybe not that, but
Look, he could be like a World War One buff turned freak mad scientist. He gets
yeah.
back a little bit.
He always had one of his hobbies aside from scaring the crap out of his students would be World War One aviation history. It's
I
like,
mean, hey, it could work. What if his dad was a World War One dude that mixed mustard gas?
oh my god, that. You know what? That's actually not bad.
Chemistry.
Chemistry, chemistry. Oh my gosh. Oh man.
It could fit, but
Possibly. You'd have to
yeah.
stretch it a little bit.
Yeah, but that's adaptions for you.
Also, like, well, to be honest, I don't know what time frame that the Pattinson Batverse takes place in.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about like almost comic book movies nowadays is the like stuff like the Batman is getting almost more and more nebulous about what time frame it is because our society is changing
Mm.
into such a different one that I think some stories that were told 10, 15 years ago aren't as realistic now.
Yeah,
Because
like there was parts I'm like, it's kind of like the '70s, but then like it's kind of like our time. I don't know.
yeah,
I wasn't alive in the '70s, but
They're just vibe. I mean, it's not our world, so they can vibe however they want.
Pretty much, yeah. It might be my favorite Gotham I've seen, at
Hmm.
least on the big screen. Well, aside from the original Keaton, I do love that. Very gothic, Gotham City.
It's in the name.
I was just gonna say that, but yeah, no, yeah, no, I really enjoy um Batman a lot. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that. I'm wearing a Batman shirt today, so there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah. If I'd been in my office for this stream, or my office, me and my roommate's office, you would have seen all my roommate's Batman stuff. Because
Was he was he thinking about Pattinson Batman?
he's the guy who likes Christian Bale better.
Oh, okay.
He thinks it was only mid, and I'm like,
Really?
no. Yeah.
I was about to say I had some issues with Bale, but I won't get into that. That's not our argument to have.
Yeah, I
Um,
wouldn't be able to support his side of things much because I probably agree with you.
um, but yeah, you've covered some stuff on your channel. I'm kind of scrolling through at the moment. Um,
Yeah, at one point I was doing 2 videos a week, which was crazy because now it's hard to even get one out a month or even every 3 months.
like one I think looks interesting. Is that Disco Elysium? Because I just bought that game recently. I haven't played it yet,
Yeah,
but
was that the video game one? I think that I
yeah,
put
the
Disco
video it
Elysium
says
up on?
top
Yeah.
video games. It's all one word. Top video games that could be books.
Yeah, I think I talked about Disco Elysium there. That is a really great game. You're like, I gotta get on Matt's Sunday Pub because he said he liked Disco Elysium, so I gotta get on there and talk about it with him, because he's a big fan.
I
Um,
bought it. I haven't played it yet.
yeah, yeah, that's about how it goes. I bought it like some years ago, and it's really funny because a friend of mine saw it on my library, and he was like, "That looks interesting," and he started playing it, and he got barely into it, and then he was just like, and I saw him playing it. I'm like, "Wait, this is more wild than I thought it was. It's still depressing, but it's still like if you do certain things at the very beginning of the game and have a certain build, your necktie talks to you."
Heard it's like Planescape Torment, which
Haven't played it.
I've played a little bit of that, but I keep getting stuck, and it's really frustrating because, like, I'm not used to those like isotropic RPGs. So it's also a very old game. It was made in like the '90s, though the version I played was remastered on PS4. For some reason, they remastered it.
Yeah, I think I've heard of Planescape Torment. I really haven't played it. Disco Elysium, just like it was a weird looking game that I'm like, ooh, that looks interesting, and it turned out to be so much more than I expected. Um, Basically, like as with all RPGs, you have to read a lot, but like the voice acting in it is really good. Just the concept of you having these different skills that talk to you throughout your conversations, whether it's like Half-Life or muscle or your muscle skills or like your encyclopedia skill was really good for me in my first playthrough. Um, but yeah, you're just an alcoholic cop, man, that is trying to solve a murder, and there's political discussions along the way.
As you do
Yeah,
when you're a cop.
yeah.
God, it
I
seems
think
like alcoholism's part of the job description.
it's definitely a huge trope with cops for sure. Um, I think a lot of the game is about failure as a theme, which is really vibes with me, depending on the day.
Do you view yourself as a failure?
No, I just
Okay.
failure as a concept is a really. I mean, I can, but that's on a normal level, not as like a super depressed person. Um, I'm, I would say I view myself as a failure a normal amount.
But yeah, I've
Not
heard
in a debilitating way, but just as a dang, I could be doing more occasionally.
like have you ever watched Max I can't pronounce his last name, but it's Darrett?
Can't say I have.
Oh, I was about to say I think he made a video about Disco Elysium called the other most philosophical game of all time. The first one was Planescape Torment.
Yeah, Disco Elysium could definitely fill that niche. It's really interesting. So like going through like the different the playthroughs, because you can play as different types of cops, and you have this like thought cabinet that you can internalize thoughts, and they change some of your dialogue, and they change how you play the game, sort of. Um, like you could be a sad cop, an art cop, a post-apocalyptic cop, stuff like that.
It's a post-apocalyptic cop.
You basically choose the dialogue options that relate to the apocalypse.
So has there been an apocalypse in this world?
No, I mean, arguably there could be one coming, but like it depends on how you look at things.
Okay.
It's complicated, but no, I mean, there hasn't been an actual apocalypse, but there's been wars, lots of wars. Like the most recent one that really affects the game is like the communards, the communists, trying to take back their country and failing.
Mm. Wasn't it made
And
by people in like Croatia or something?
I think it was Estonia, actually.
Estonia. Wow,
Uh,
an Estonian video game.
there's technically a book that I've heard is not very good, but also not translated into English.
I've seen that. I don't know
Yeah.
what that would be like. That sounds interesting, but
It's
we'll
not
see.
like an adaptation, I think, but it's like because it was written before it.
Yeah, but
But
I wanted to play that game for a very long time. Well, it's funny. I actually learned about it on this podcast. I had an indie author named Casey Sutton on my
nice.
show about 6 months ago. It was in June. No, about 6 or 7 months ago. And he was like, "Have you ever heard of this game called Disco Elysium?" I'm like, "Can't say I have." And he basically explained it. Then my next guest, or like a few episodes later, another guest of mine brought it up, and I was like, "Okay, I gotta know what this is." I'm like, "That sounds familiar."
Why
So,
haven't you played it yet? Come on, third time's the charm. Let's go.
no, wait, I maybe the like fourth time it's been brought up, third or fourth time.
I'll get Matt. I'll try to take my nap before the Sunday thing on Sunday, so I can actually be aware and awake for Matt's Sunday pub. So him and I can get on and hound you about playing Disco Elysium.
Yeah, I
It's a
know.
really good game.
I just need to, because again, I'm really like, I'm not great at RPGs. Like, I'm really bad at like that systemization stuff, like both in like tabletop and like I am terrible at just like setting all my skills up, because like I'll just run up on it. They'll be like, no combat, and then I'll get into like a combat situation. I just get domed by the.
I mean, everything everything relies on the skill. Like a lot of it's just go with the vibes, put it where you want, and you can technically win anyways. But you're gonna die a lot because you're just gonna die a lot. Like that's literally you can die within the first 2 minutes by tripping on something. I don't know. Like you can die within the first 2 minutes really easy. You die by thinking a lot too.
That doesn't really make sense, but okay.
It makes perfect sense within the world because you take like the two types of damage you have: physical damage, which can be like you punch a door and it hurts you, and then you die.
You can die from punching a door?
You lose 1 health. You only have 1 health. You die. I don't know what you're talking about. It makes perfect sense. And then there's morale health. So you basically become so depressed or something that you die.
Oh my god. This sounds like a very absurd
It is very absurd and it's great.
um but I like the art style that I've seen. It's like kind
Yeah,
of like watercolor, like oil painting or something.
something like that. But it's great. I'm not like an art guy.
I mean, I'm not really either, but I've read a lot of comic books, so I'm you know, I'm kind of familiar with the lingo.
You appreciate the art
I
styles.
appreciate them. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I felt that.
I don't know if I don't know if you've ever read comics or manga or whatever, but
Some I've mostly comics. There are some manga that I'm thinking about getting into. Comics I have I have the first two volumes of this of Sandman, and then I've read Watchmen,
That's
and
some
then technically White Sand, but like, eh.
like that's a good place to start. I mean, Watchmen's a great story. I mean, I've jumped into the Watchmen rabbit hole a few times, so I won't go on my rant there.
Yeah,
Um,
Watchmen was a really good I watched the movie first, and the ending. I did not expect the ending of the comic, to be honest. After watching the movie,
oh yeah.
like, I didn't realize they changed it, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of like the movie ending better.
I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of have to think about the context of the story. This was like back when superhero. This was like back in like the Silver Age. So
But the ending was the ending felt random in the comic, but felt a lot more intentional in the movie to me.
yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from. I've heard that argument a lot, though. I heard an argument. I think it was actually Linkara who said it, but basically, I mean, I guess it's kind of as I've thought about it, it kind of doesn't make sense that they would team up against Doctor Manhattan because what can you do to that guy? Nothing.
Mhm.
But
I'm misremembering the ending of the movie. I remember a bunch of nukes that
oh,
were.
um, but yeah, in the comic, it's like a squid. It's like this like
Yeah, yeah. Isn't like so. I guess full spoilers for the Watchmen comics, which have been around for a while. Um, was it the ending of the comic? What's his face does the monologue or the lack of a monologue, and then the squids happen. But in the movie, it's like he does the lack of a monologue, and then nukes happen, and it's all triggered by him. Versus like it was felt like random in the comics. It's like, oh yeah, he's doing a thing, but then his plan is also like technically foiled by squid or something. Am I misremembering that?
Well, I don't think it. If I remember right, it's not nukes. It's like Doctor Manhattan's energy,
Yeah, yeah. It's Doctor Manhattan fueled nukes, bombs.
something like that. I don't
And
know.
it's framing Doctor Manhattan so he stays away from the Earth.
Yeah, pretty much. In the comic though, it's like this weird psychic Lovecraftian squid. I don't know.
Mhm.
And if I remember right, I think Alan Moore has maybe he said it. I don't know if it's apocryphal or not, but he has kind of admitted that he kind of just pulled. He wanted to see if he jumped the shark with a squid ending, like the squid being the big reveal. But no, I really enjoy Watchmen a lot, and the Sandman's very good too.
Yeah, I haven't gotten. I think I've gotten to the first few um, issues of that, but I haven't gotten like super far.
Did you get to the serial killer convention?
Yes, that was weird.
I was about to say you'd remember it if you.
It took me a minute. I'm like, okay, first convention. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That was that
That's an appropriate reaction.
wild.
Oh man, they did it so well in the show too. There's the hilarious bit when Gilbert like walks in and they're talking about like women are being left out of the serial killing game and he doesn't get it at first and then he's like, "Oh, wait a minute." It's fucking great. It's great. I love it. Uh
Yeah, that's another one I have to watch. But I think I want to get. Do you know where the show ends for that first season? Because if I can get there, then I could be more confident about.
the show ends at the end of um the serial killer convention arc.
Oh, okay.
So
So I'm
if
probably caught up for the show.
like the first two volumes.
Okay, maybe I'm farther in it than I thought.
And they also did the one with the which are more standalones, but one with the cats and the one about the author who kidnaps the fate.
Don't remember that.
Okay. So, maybe wait till you watch episode 11 then because but no, I think Sandman's great. So
Mhm.
so you're really starting out with like the goated comics, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Comics aren't something that are like super engaging for me. Like I can read them really fast, but like that's also kind of a bad thing with the comics. I need to slow down a little bit. So I don't go out of my way to buy a lot of comics, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see.
The other one I'm sitting on is I just bought the graphic novelization of Dune,
Oh.
or at least the part one of it.
So what do you think about Dune? You think Dune's the shit?
Dune's great. I really like. So I've read through part of God Emperor, and
Mm.
God Emperor got a little weird for me, but I really like Dune.
You like
For
Dune?
what you've done there. I do. Yeah,
You like
I
Dune?
got the
You,
board game and everything.
oh, okay. I'm a little mixed on Dune personally
Yeah.
because
How much have you read of it?
I read the first book
Okay.
and I was like, okay, that was a thing.
Did you read Dune Messiah, which is much shorter and completes the story?
No.
Like
I
that. Yeah.
also watched the film, which looks amazing, but I kind of had the same issues I had with the book, which I'm like, I really don't care about what's going on here. I'm just kind of, and I know there's the whole, it's about ideas and whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I really connected with the world building. I think the world building is fascinating for
Oh
me.
yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I as a person connect with world building on the level that some people connect with characters.
Interesting.
For me, world building is very much a mystery, and I get
So
really engaged in trying to figure out that mystery of world building.
so like, how was that with like Disco Elysium? How'd they do the world building? Did that tickle you? Did that tickle your pickle?
Oh yeah, for sure. So it depends. Like your build definitely depends on how much of the history you're going to get, and who you talk to and how you talk to them is going to depend on what you're going to get. Um, if you go for like one of their three, they have three special, like they have three optional builds you can do. Any one of them can complete you the game. They'll just be slightly different paths because of your skills and stuff like that.
Mm,
But I choose the one that was more like the blue skill points, the blue skill based build, which includes like encyclopedia and some other stuff. So like the intellectual build. So you have like the intellectual build, the emotional build, and the physical build. Basically, are those standard builds that they give you, or you can create your own if you really want to. But the intellectual build with especially an emphasis in this encyclopedia will get you a lot more of the world.
interesting.
Some of it's like just encyclopedia, just listing out information about the world, which can be fascinating in its own right. But it happens really interestingly because what'll happen is you'll have checks in the middle of a conversation, and encyclopedia will just spit out this information, and you'll be like, "Wow, this has dates and everything."
um, but yeah, I thought Dune was fine. It felt I don't know. The characterization felt a little over-explained. Like, there's parts when they're just hanging out and he just tells you what they're thinking and like very like they're very
Newt, because that
like there's very little subtext in the conversations. I'm just like, no, this just that takes the tension out. At least for me, it does.
I can see that. What perspective is this? I know what it's supposed to be called. Um,
Omniscient.
yeah, I think it's like third person omniscient. Yeah, it's third person omniscient. There we go. Thank you. That is a very hard style to do, and because it's so different, it's hard. I understand that can be really hard to connect to.
I mean, I'm not against that style. I mean, I like Blood Meridian and well,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of Cormac McCarthy stuff. That's pretty much omniscient. Or at least I think it is.
Does it tell you all the thoughts of everybody?
What?
Does it attempt to tell you all the thoughts of everybody?
No.
So at that point, it's probably some form of limited
Oh. Then
versus
yeah,
omniscient.
it's actually limited. Never mind.
Yeah,
I don't know what
omniscient.
I'm talking about.
From what I know, omniscient is just
It's not like Joe
trying.
Abercrombie where you just can like you're definitely in a character's perspective and it's basically like
Yeah,
an
that
inner
would.
monologue except it's not in first person.
Yeah, that would be third person limited. But like third person omniscient is where the reader is aware of everybody as much as possible. Um, so, which again is like super hard to do because, like you said, it can take out tension sometimes. Um, it definitely leads to like a showcasing of ideas and a showcasing of the entire situation.
I guess with McCarthy's books, it feels like you're observing a lot of the characters. Like you don't really get a lot of their, thought process about the world. It's just kind of like it's like it's kind of like it's funny because I was talking about being a journalist before we started this, but it's kind of like a journalistic, you know.
Oh, interesting.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, I wouldn't start with Blood Meridian unless you're, a mad lad and you want to try it out. But I wouldn't start there.
It's like I think I've heard of Blood Meridian, The Road, and those are the two that I've only heard significant things about.
Yeah, I saw. You watch Matt's fantasy book reviews?
Occasionally.
Do you know of him? You know what he's
Oh
about?
wait, no. I know of him. I really don't watch him. He's not Matt from Sunday Pub, but
No,
the
he's not Sunday Pub Matt.
he's the
he's from California. He's
marketer. He's the SEO guy, search engine the guy that knows a lot about SEO, search engine optimization. That's the only reason I know.
I think so. I think he works in politics, if I remember, which is why he can speak so well off the cuff. Because I'm like, God, dude, how do you do that? And he's like, I do it a lot for my job. I'm like, damn you.
Yeah, basically all I've watched like one of his videos, and then probably more than one. Because I remember hearing, I think it was either his intro video or something. He was talking about he was really good with, or he had a lot of experience with search engine optimization, and that I was like, that explains a lot. That's probably at least part of there's a lot of things that probably went into him getting a lot of subscribers pretty quickly, but that's a big one.
Well, he didn't really like Blood Meridian, which I can see why. It's not a book that's for everyone. I mean, it is a very, very violent book, and also the characters. You're basically. I was joking with Tori once. I'm like, "Hey, Tori, you should read Blood Meridian. It has a motley crew of deranged murderers." And she took it like a champ. She was like, that sounded really bad. She took it on the chin. She was kind of like, yeah, I don't think I'll be reading.
She likes the wholesome motley crew.
Yeah, pretty much. But I was just like, she was all like, man, I'm searching for all these books about motley crews, and I'm like, oh man, this will be so funny.
Yeah,
so, because I have very little decorum. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, no, I don't recommend Blood Meridian for everyone. It's I would start with like The Road or All the Pretty Horses or No Country first. That's more like, okay, you can understand more what's going on.
Look, sometimes I like not knowing what's going on and just
me too.
That's what it.
Yeah, I did a buddy read, or I did this read along with my friend Jason on the book Inherent Vice last year, and he kept bitching about it. I'm like, bro, can you just stop? I just want to process this experience, and I don't want to hear you fucking jabbering on about.
How I don't know all this stuff. Why can't he tell me this stuff now?
Yeah. I know. It's like it's the same thing when he reads like fantasy stuff. He's like, "Why is it just going on here?" It's all right. I'm like, that was a bunch of word salad. I'm sorry.
It's an interesting thought. Like, just it's interesting how different people process books. Like between, with fantasy, it's really interesting because sometimes books will lean on tropes so they just don't explain things to the point that if you're a non-fantasy reader, you don't necessarily know what's going on. You don't know what's going on a lot more if you're not aware of how things work in fantasy. And I think Malazan is an extreme example of this because he leans on tropes.
Yeah, he actually quit Malazan, which I think is hilarious. It's actually his biggest video on his channel. He's like, he just goes.
I think
in big
Can't
letters
stand.
he says I quit Gardens of the Moon, and like
Wow.
so many people were like, and it wasn't like him being a troll or anything. He was just kind of like, I just wasn't vibing with it, and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Malazan is definitely a epitome of like trust the process.
But sometimes I just get kind of sometimes I get kind of like I'm like, so you say you don't like fantasy with too much. It's like saying you don't like a horror novel because it's too scary. Because he's all like, he's like, I don't like too much magic, too much magic, and I'm like, it's like saying you don't like too much like scary. Like again, I've had
I
a
mean,
long day,
to be
so I
fair,
might not be fully coherent.
I think I understand where you're coming from. I mean, for me, like if I watch anything horror, it's probably gonna be a horror comedy, if anything, because I don't jive with horror. Um, it's not my thing.
So
I
yeah,
will I am more apt to laugh at things than I am to enjoy being scared. Um, and more than likely, if it's a horror movie, that I will find something to laugh at, even if it's not a horror comedy. Um, or just like I don't know, but I can understand where he's coming from, sort of.
like he mentioned, like because I mean I haven't read Malazan, so I'm
Mhm.
not really gonna I'm not really I don't really have a dog here. But he was kind of like, well, people just get kind of like brought, or he basically is like, people just get brought back to life, and it's just like,
It's true.
I'm like, it kind of deflated the tension for him, and I was like, yeah, okay, so I can see that, I mean,
Yeah,
I haven't read it, so I don't know, and be honest, I'm kind of like, I don't. I mean, I do want to read it at some point. I mean, I like darker stuff, so
yeah.
it tends to
It's
appeal to me more. But it's freaking long.
just dive in, man.
It's a
Like
chunky boy for one.
it's not the end of
10
Malcolm is
chunky
not
boys.
getting closer until you start.
Like, look, I'm a fast reader, but like, I don't know if I want to sink so much time. Like, what if
Britain,
the ending sucks? Like,
Britain, you have all the time in the world. And I can guarantee you, if like you're an avid fantasy reader and you like darker stuff, like I think there's something in Malazan for everyone.
though I do hear there are dinosaurs in Malazan. I'm like, and
Yeah,
I texted
they
my
have.
friend who's a huge fan. I'm like, why the fuck didn't you tell me about that? And I'm like, you're always telling me about like how complex it is. Like, tell me at least there's the dinosaurs, man. Like,
There's dinosaurs. There's epic battle sequences. Assassins on rooftops.
because I,
Dark elves that are super depressed occasionally. Like
like one of my frustrations with the like no one hypes Malazan and makes people excited to read it. It's always like, oh yeah, it's kind of difficult, and
I mean,
yeah, a
it's a
lot of people
combination
quit,
of
and it throws a lot of things at you. Like, I don't want to read that. But when you say it has epic battle scenes and dinosaurs, I'm like, okay, now we're talking.
yeah. There's a scene with bodies in. Oh, I'm not going to spoil that scene, but there's a lot of bodies in a house at one point. That's a really weird scene, but it's an epic battle scene.
Very vague, but okay, we'll
It's
go.
very vague. I didn't want to ruin the experience for a hot second. Um, I mean, you got your interesting politic. Like it's a lot of things.
And also,
So
there's like people who can like turn into flies. I'm like, that sounds cool. Nobody mentions
yeah,
that when they're trying to hype up Malazan. Like,
because everybody's like, it's a part of that comes from the Malazan community, which can be frustrating. Where the Malazan community is so obsessed over the amazing themes, and they're not wrong. They sometimes
like
just need to be
I don't
better
hear
promoted.
Tori talking about devil dinosaurs with fucking like swords for hands.
That's not till book 3. I think she's read through book 2.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, huh?
She went through House of Chains. That's right. The hardest thing about
But
being on
like,
book 2
I
is
want to hear about the cool stuff more than just it's difficult and it throws a lot
flying
of things at you.
mountains.
Wait, what'd you say?
Dude, just go flying mountains.
Flying mountains?
Go look at Broken Bindings previews for the art in the editions that are coming out. Just go do that and that'll sell you.
Like I mean, Gravity's Rainbow. I've heard that's a difficult book. Now, if somebody told me there's a weapon that's made out of that's based on a dude's erection, which is a literal thing in that book apparently. I haven't read it. But I'm like, that actually sounds kind of weird and interesting. I want to read about that.
Look, I hear Gravity's Rainbow and Infinite Jest are usually grouped in the same category. I've read I've read parts of Infinite Jest and they're super weird. So like that is not that barely breaches the surface of weird, I'm sure. If Gravity's Weird Rainbow is anywhere close to being as weird as Infinite Jest.
Yeah, I've always Infinite Jest is one of those books I've always wanted to read. I'm just like, it's so big. And they say like it's
Yeah.
so complicated. I don't
The
know.
the Infinite Jest for me is the jest of me finishing it.
That's from Shakespeare, Hamlet. Because
Oh, the Infinite Jest quote?
yeah. Oh,
Oh,
York. He was a man of infinite jest. I
Oh,
don't
that's
remember
cool.
the exact quote.
I did not know that, but
But then again, I am going to read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell this year. So
good.
I can't say, I have no. So maybe if that chunky boy goes well, I can go into more chunky boys.
Britton, you have all the time in the world. And that is like the biggest thing that has helped me just not be afraid of long books because I got
No,
nothing
but
but
like Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell actually sounds really cool because I actually like the colonial Napoleonic era. So I'm like, all right, and I read
yeah.
Piranesi and I really liked it. So I'm like, all right, this.
Oof, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell is not Piranesi.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, and I'm
As long
like,
as you know that, you're good.
and that's another thing I've heard a lot. I'm like, look, I'm just saying it makes me excited to read that book. I'm not saying it's the same thing.
Flashbacks, man. Just too many people have been like, oh my gosh, I thought this was going to be Piranesi. And we're like, why did you think it was going to be Piranesi? The everything's different. I mean, to be fair, most authors are similar. Not everybody is Adrian Tchaikovsky, who is more adaptable as a writer than a chameleon. So it is.
But it's speaking of that, I see that you have Jonathan Strange, Mr. Norrell on your channel.
I
What do you think
do.
of it?
I loved that book. Amazing book.
Is it gonna just like am I gonna love it or?
I honestly don't know not enough about your taste.
Okay, fair enough.
I think if you are excited about the era and excited about like just the vibes of that era, if you could just vibe with the vibes and just chill out and let the book go and do its thing, then you're good.
Or there's a lot of footnotes.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Which I'm like, all right, yeah.
Nice. Books and other historical pieces. Like, I think I really liked how she wove in kind of fake myths and stuff like this.
Also, there's a character called the Raven King I've seen, and I'm like, that sounds fucking awesome. I want to read that. I want to read about that.
Yeah. Don't hold your breath for him to appear very soon.
Yeah, I hear he like disappears. I'm like, oh, yeah.
So he's like the King Arthur magician of this alternate.
Though I've heard
history.
it's kind of a comedy of these two eccentric British gentlemen who just use magic.
So imagine that magic wasn't in the world, and then a wizard, a book knowledge dude, and a sorcerer, a guy who just kind of figures it out, are bringing magic back. Also, the sorcerer doesn't appear for the first third of the book.
Well, as long as I'm entertained by what's going on, I think I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Also, I've heard it's Dickensian, and I really like Charles Dickens, at least the books of his I've read so far. So, yeah.
It's Dickensian in that there's a lot of words, and you're not sure what the plot's doing right now.
I don't mind screwing around. I don't mind farting around. Just, I just want to be entertained.
If you can vibe with what's like happening in the moment and vibe with the vibe of the world, then you're probably
the vibe of the world.
It's again like it's like a word salad where you just said like I don't know how to describe it other than just like if you're vibing and you're great. If you're not vibing, then like
yeah, it's like Perdido Street Station. You're vibing. If you're
just go with it. Like that's my philosophy with books. Just go with it and figure out what the author's trying to do. Don't worry about what you want it to be. Just go with what the author wants it to be.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that book though. I'm
Yeah,
really
it's
wanting to read it. Like I really want to read that book. Like well, I own it, but I'm
yeah,
really looking forward to reading it. I'll put it that way.
yeah. I think that the relationship between Jonathan Strange and Mr. Nora was really good. I think the magic and the mystery of the world is really good with like what
Or
happened
American
magic and
Gods.
stuff.
It's like a vibe. What you were saying earlier. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Say what you said again.
A little bit. It's the mystery of the world, what happened to magic, what how they can bring it back, and kind of like all the different myths and stuff that she ties in of just like, hey, this is like a half a page footnote about, hey, this is a story about the Raven King. And it's really weird. Like a lot of that is just really, really good. Just tone setting. Um, and it's just really interesting to learn. It's there's huge mysteries about the world and that's really why I would probably put that one up there as one of my favorite books.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm really hoping it really gets me going.
Yeah,
But yeah, I've heard it's about two British gentlemen who don't quite get along,
yeah.
and they're just chilling out and trying to do magic. I'm like, that sounds pretty fun if
Yeah.
done well.
I mean, the curmudgeon isn't really chilling about. He like the curmudgeon, which is the wizard, is like he's the guy you stick with for the first third. Once you get to him, it's very much a curmudgeon trying to a closeted curmudgeon, like closeted in that he does not interact with the world much until the events of this book.
Oh, so like he's
Um,
not gay?
no, no, not that I know of.
Oh, okay.
But he's this curmudgeon that is trying to bring magic back, and he doesn't understand why people aren't as excited as he is.
Yeah, I've heard he's a bit of a snob
He's very much of a snob.
very from what little bits I've heard because I've tried to go into this book as blind as possible.
Oh, okay. I apologize if I've.
No. That's fine. No, I
Yeah.
mean, as long as you're not just like spoiling, like, oh, the Raven King like dies or some shit like that. I don't know, but some shit like that. I don't know. I'm just saying that out of
I won't say
nowhere, or like Mr. Norrell like gets into a carriage accident or something. But but I'm trying to like not be so hyped up. So we'll see how well it goes. But like I said, I'm looking forward to Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start it in April.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Uh,
April seems like a good time of the year to start this book.
Probably.
For some reason, I don't know why, but
Bright and cheery time, and there are not there are some parts of the book that are not bright and cheery.
um, yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to other fantasy. I'm hoping to read the Books of Babel this year.
Yes,
I'm
that's another good
I'm gonna
one.
start Sinlin of Sins. Hopefully, well, it's February 1st, so after I either complete Kindred or The Crossing, I'm gonna start Sinlin of Sins.
Nice. Yeah, that's another good one where the vibes of the world kind of hooked me in. And then kind of I just kept going. There is like a bit of a tone. It feels like there's a bit of a tone shift from 1 to 2, because the everything goes off the rails. But again, I think what helped me out because like I was in a bit of a slump, and then I started reading Armor of the Sphinx, and I wasn't vibing with it because it wasn't book one. Um, and then I came back to it like a couple months later, and it was like, let's just let this book be what it wants to be, and then I was fine with it. Like it starts out very much like exploratory of the tower, and then the second one goes into like adventure. It feels a lot more adventure fantasy and less plotting exploration. I don't know how to if it's just the second one is not the first one. And then once you it'll be better if you just let it be what it's going to be.
Also, I'm gonna hopefully read Moon Witch Spider King, probably during the summer because it's a thick boy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sequel to Black Leopard Red Wolf, which is one of those books I keep trying to get people to read, and they don't. and like the other day I was like shilling it on I think it was on Talking Stories channel.
Mm.
Um, and everyone was like, "Oh, that book fucking sucked." And I was like, "Oh man." It's like, man, like that. I was like, it felt like my dog died or something when I saw those comments.
I've known some people to like it, but I haven't seen many in our circle of booktube that have really liked it.
Yeah, that's why I did a review, and I keep telling people to go read it because it's great. I enjoy it a lot. You
What
know.
did you like about it?
Oh man. Um,
This is,
Another one of those. It's funny. You were talking about the vibes earlier. It was just another one of those books. I just love the vibes, man.
mm-hmm.
And also, there's a lot of weird creatures and monsters, and I'm like that I like that. And I thought the characters were really well done, and also the ambiguity of the narrative because the narrator is unreliable. So I thought that was fun to kind of figure out like, okay, is he just bullshitting us or is he really telling the truth?
Oh, okay.
I thought that
Yeah.
was really fun. It's kind of like a puzzle.
Yeah. Sounds. I think there's like there's one scene in particular that I've heard about that I've like that's turned me off a little bit to the book. That makes me
Oh
think
yeah,
it's.
there's like graphic like violence in
Mhm.
sex, graphic sexual violence as well. Um, there's one scene in particular that really gave me the shivers, but I kept going.
Mhm.
I won't go into it because I don't want to spoil it. It's one of those you have to read it to really
Yeah.
get the. You read Malazan. I'm sure you'll be fine if you ever read Black Leopard Red Wolf. 'Cause I've heard Malazan gets really messed up.
Yeah. There's some pretty messed up parts of Malazan that I think Erickson handles really well for the most part. There's one scene later on in the books that I'm kind of like that is contentious for me, but it's not really like contentious generally for everybody else.
It's weird because I don't like reading about rape and stuff in
Hmm.
books, but like it's not a thing that'll turn me away. Like I can
Hmm.
like I don't know. It's weird. Am I just a psycho and
I
just a
mean,
sociopath? Is that it?
I think you'd be a sociopath or a psychopath if you enjoyed it
Okay.
for something
I
along
don't
those lines.
enjoy it. I'm like, oh no, God, I don't want to read about that. Because
Yeah.
I read a book
I,
called Kagan the Damned recently. There's a lot of rape in that book. I'm like, geez, man. There's like
I probably
attempted
read it.
rape. There's like actual rape. There's like the aftermath of it. I'm like, oh, dude, oh. As John said, all the trigger warnings. Oh my God.
Yeah, I think that if I hear enough about like for Malazan, I pretty much went blind into it. I didn't realize what was like some of the topics he was going to cover. Um, but he also covered the topics pretty well.
Hmm.
And but most of the time that tends to turn me off, mostly because of it tends to not be dealt with well.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah. I
it's
mean,
really hard to deal with and not be gratuitous.
I've actually thought about doing a video about sexual violence in fantasy because I have some issues with that.
Hmm.
And I was trying to get like one of the female YouTubers to like, because I wanted to hear the female perspective on this.
Yeah.
But on the one hand, like, would you in good conscience walk up to a lady and be like, "Hey, you want to talk about rape and fantasy?" Yeah, that's kind. It's. I'll put it this way: it's been kind of a struggle, getting that one off the ground.
Yeah, yeah, that's not a question that anybody really wants to.
Like I tried asking Laura from Fantasy Awash. I'm like, "Hey, do you want to like talk about this with me?" And she's like, "Don't know." What's
I think
your
a lot
angle
of
on it? And I'm like,
yeah, a
"Well,
lot of that could come from like a very edgy standpoint. Like, I think it comes down to people have to know you really well to be able to trust you to talk about that.
yeah." I was about to say,
Yeah.
and she's been kind of. I tried getting her to talk about Paranacy a while back, and she was kind of like, and well, she said she was busy, but I'm like, I hope I didn't like scare her away by asking her
Yeah.
about that. Oh.
Yeah, a lot of it would probably deal with a lot of what you would probably yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. In Kagan the Damned, it's very clear that the people who are raping other people are the bad guys. So
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not completely. Now, I'll admit, it is a little cliched way to get you to hate the bad guys, but I am too much of a sucker where I'm like, okay, I hate these guys.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I guess my angle I wanted to go for was like, why is this such a prevalent thing in fantasy?
Yeah, that's a good question to ask because
I should have just told her
like
that and see what
yeah, yeah,
she
you
see what she, but I wasn't really because I wasn't I really hadn't thought it through yet.
mhm.
But when I asked her, so I don't know, maybe someday.
Yeah, you should definitely come up with some sort of elevator pitch for that of like, hey, I want to address this in like a very this is badly handled most of the time type of deal. So
Exactly. Yeah,
don't
I'm just
bother
like,
me.
why is this? Because like I could get someone like Raph from Raph Blue Text, but I'm like, I don't know. It would feel kind of dirty to me, just me and just like other white guys just talking about
Yeah.
it.
I understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
I'd be like, hey, well, and also I saw Bookborn's video about violence against women. And I'm like, I kind of want to respond to that because
Yeah.
that's something I've seen a lot. Because like, my God, there's like even books I like Game of Thrones, do it. So
Mhm. Yeah, it almost feels like the graphic equivalent of kicking a puppy sometimes. It's like you don't have to show us this guy as a villain just with that. Like there are other ways you can do that. Um or sometimes it's like you want to make this book adult, let's put that in it.
yeah, pretty much. I'm like, oh, it's so just, oh,
I want to be I want to address the topics trademarked. So I'm going to put sexual violence in this book. And then you don't address it at all. It's like bro, that's like a disservice to everybody.
there's even
And
books like I'm interested in reading, like the Brian McClellan books. I forget
Mhm.
their name. It's the Powder Mage, I think. I had a
Yeah.
buddy who read that, and he's like, "Yeah, they kind of do that." And like, there's even a woman character who like threatens to have her men gang rape somebody. I'm like,
That happened.
I
I mean
mean,
his
I don't mean to laugh, but it's just like again, I'm not a psychopath, but
it's been like what 3 years since I read Powder Mage. So like I mean so I read the first book first of all, and I didn't
uh,
continue. Um there were a lot of things about that series that were like just underexplored in general.
well, I like the
That
idea. It's like, oh, you
yeah,
use gunpowder magic. That could be fun.
you can see a mile by snorting magic cocaine.
Yeah, or magic gunpowder. You mean?
Yeah, or just gunpowder. Um, it's eh. It was mid.
You thought it was mid. I was like, so you thought it
it
was
was
a
very
mid?
mid. Like I'll put that one on the same tier as aggressively mid, like Emperor's Blades. Both of those books
Oh, you didn't
were
like that one? I was actually looking forward to that one. That's another one because like I watch Alan's videos and Alan is really good at getting you excited about reading books.
yeah, absolutely. I will say with aggressive, it's aggressively mid because he doesn't understand how special forces work, and you spend most of the book with the least interesting characters.
Wait, so what do you mean? Were you an actual special forces soldier at one point, or
I when I was younger, I was in a organization called Civil Air Patrol, and I there was a camp that was related to Civil Air Patrol where you actually got to, um, this sounds super pretentious, but be trained by Air Force Special Forces for a week. Mind you, these are kids ranging from like 14
that
to
sounds
19.
either cool or terrifying. I don't know.
It's cool. It was an experience, and I put trained by liberally very like it's one of those it's an experience because they give you a taste, so to speak, of special forces training. Like it was like one of the only camps that had like physical requirements where you had to like pass certain tests beforehand because they want to make sure you're not going to die when you're out in the desert type of deal. Because it was in Arizona. The first year that I did it, The basic course, we were up in the mountains most of the time, and the second year we spent a few days out in the desert. It was really cool, and it was perfectly safe. Like, let me emphasize that it was perfectly safe.
Well, I'm sure it was.
Yeah,
I
we
imagine
just
it
got
was.
killed.
I don't think they'd be like spraying you or something with like water hoses like they would in the
Yeah,
real military.
but in Emperor's Blades, he got the basic philosophy of what special training is for wrong, completely wrong.
Well, how so, or is that spoilery?
So a lot of the special forces training that he did is he got the first part ish right. Is that special forces is training is required. It breaks you down mentally, physically, emotionally, right? But it also builds you and your teammates up because
Does,
you are
did
supposed to trust
Was
these
there a
people
lot
with
of
your life.
shouting at you when you were when you were
Yeah,
trained?
yeah,
Did they shout at you?
yeah. That's that. It is what it is. Like,
You're
like
so
they shout at
casual
you.
about all
So
that.
what? Like, okay.
You're
They,
so casual about that. Like,
of course they shout at you. If they didn't, it'd be weird. Like,
it's not like Snape from the movies where he's just like looking down at you and just disgusted by your mere
that's the.
existence.
I mean, they say that, but in a louder tone. But like, it's also like you also there's a sense of this isn't real. Like it's weird. But that's also because it was a camp and we weren't trying to become special forces. At one point, I actually wanted to do that. Like, I wanted to be a PJ. I wanted to jump out of planes, go save people. That's the 5 word pitch or whatever that I came up with to emphasize. Like, these are like the Air Force Special Forces that go out and they're combat medics in the special forces.
So wait, so what did they get wrong in Emperor's Blade?
He got the breaking down part right. He got the building up part wrong. So for him in the special forces like training sequences, he pitted a lot of people against each other within the special forces sequences. Like, it was very individual focused and very much like you have to survive on your own. And that's not what special forces training is about. Like, it's about building you. Like, you have to trust you are in a team and you have to trust these people with your life. It's also about making it hard as it can now so it's easy later. So when you make enemies, like when you have training that feels like it's designed to make enemies among your cadets, that is blatantly wrong. Like, I feel like you didn't do any research at all.
Yeah, I read I recently I started a new series on my channel called What's the Big Fuss,
Mm-hmm.
which you can probably gather, what it's about. But it's basically where I talk about books that have sort of been making the rounds on Booktube, and I read them and see how and see
What's the
the
big fuss?
title exactly. Um, yeah, what's all this hype about? And yeah, um, I read Fourth Wing for the first one. I read the Amazon sample, and that was about it. Because there were just some points in that book that were completely absurd. Like you were mentioning this, you were special force trained. You would hate Fourth Wing because my God, they are murdering people, like murder. Like there's one part where one of the cadets literally on because they have this little thing where they are on this walkway and you have to cross the walkway in order to make it to the other side and be a
Mm.
part of the like special forces Dragon Riders crew. And if you die, oh
Who
well.
cares?
There's
Yeah.
one part where this one guy just picks up this small kid and just throws him off the freaking throws him off the walkway. I'm like, I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah, that's like a more brutal type of.
I mean, maybe in
I mean,
Soviet Russia when Joseph Stalin was running the show,
yeah,
maybe.
that would probably fall under the category of eliminating the weak because like that's tech. That's also a part of like the training. Like
Now,
that's really the part that everybody exaggerates is the fact that special like any sort of special forces training is going to um because it's so hard it will intend to weed out the weak. In my opinion, that tends to, and this is this is coming from someone who has not gone through special forces training. This is coming from someone who has not been in the military. This is coming from someone who has only had a taste, basically, and talked to people in special forces, and really admired them for a good period. I still admire them to a certain extent. That is a side, like, weeding out the weak is almost a side project. If it
There's a lot
I
of negative connotations to that saying
yeah,
as well.
weeding out the weak is like the stupidest way of putting it.
Yeah,
It's
pretty. It
it's
makes it sound like you're like super villain or some shit.
yeah, it's about identifying the people that will do. It's about identifying the people that won't make it, right? That
Yeah,
genuinely, like, they might have the heart, but they can't. They literally can't make it. Like, it's not like, hey, you fail out and then you can never come back. Because, like, there was this one guy that was training with us. He failed out of PJ school in his 20s. And then he went back and he went up for the Green Berets, and he did well and got into the Green Berets, and then he went back to PJ school as this like, I think he was like 40 years old, and he passed it then. So he actually ended up succeeding in two different special forces,
oh my
crazy
god.
special forces schools, which is amazing. But the way that the philosophy, the way that it's actually put, is that they are doing you a favor, because if you're not going to succeed, you are a danger to yourself and others. So that
Fair.
is why they have to make sure that they have to weed out the people that won't make it, because if you can't cut it, you can't cut it.
Yeah, you don't want to get people
And that's
killed.
that's that's part of the whole, you have to trust your brothers and sisters. Like, you have to trust the people that are at your back that will take care of you, and they trust that you will take care of them in every situation. Like, that is like one of the core, because of because of the shared trauma of special forces school, and among other things, you trust each other implicitly and be
Mm.
able to save lives and complete the mission.
Mm.
And that's the part that I think most people that are idealizing it miss.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a Full Metal Jacket?
No,
No. Ah, never mind then.
sorry.
I was about to be like.
I heard Full Metal, and I thought you were going to say Alchemist.
No, I haven't seen that, but I have a friend who likes anime who's like, you should watch that. And I'm like,
It's really good.
because I'm a weird guy. I don't read a lot of manga. I don't watch a lot of anime. I don't
I wouldn't call that weird. That's more normal. What are you
I don't
talking about?
I'm not a weeaboo. I'm not on there.
Oh, neither am I. How many
There's some of
anime?
the tropes I don't like. Like, why the hell does everyone look like they're 12,
But they're
or
not.
at their
Or
oldest they're like in their 20s?
yeah, I
Like, why is everyone's eyes so big, and why is this so vaguely pedophilic? This I'm uncomfortable right now.
yeah. There's only so much anime bullcrap I can take as well. That's under
That's
the
why that's
umbrella.
why I like Cowboy Bebop. Like, there's very little of that. Like, there's a little bit of that anime goofiness, but like not so much.
The really really uncomfortable stuff is not there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like the vibes of Cowboy Bebop. I've watched one or two episodes. But my tolerance for anime bullcrap is really low, and I was able to get through Full Metal Alchemist because there was some anime bullcrap, but like most of it's not in there.
Yeah,
It's mostly
I was trying to tell Matt the other day from Matt on Books about, like, okay, look, I was one of those people who used to make fun of manga too, but like, there's
Mhm.
some good shit. And he's like, oh, shut up. I
Yeah,
read Lone
there
Wolf and
is,
Cub.
absolutely. I literally I watched an anime about this walrus taxi driver that was great. It was amazing. Like,
A walrus taxi driver.
it was freaking cool. Like, I don't remember the name of it, which is the bad thing. It's like, I don't know. Let me Google it real quick.
No, I read a manga. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. I'm so sorry if I butchered that, but it's basically Korean manga, and it's
Mhm.
called Bastard, which was pretty good. It was one of those kind of like Saga for American comics, where it just keeps coming. It just keeps you coming back for more because like you
Yeah.
want to see what happens next. Um, Good stuff though. Again, like everyone looks really young, and it kind of takes the immersion out a little bit. But I really dig that one. I need to get back to that at some point.
Yeah. So the one I watched was Odd Taxi. Everybody's an animal, and the level of anime bullshit is like so low, very low. It's really good.
Huh.
Yeah, just really, really low. I really liked it. Yeah,
But yeah, that's why I'm kind of hesitant to watch One Piece, like the anime, because like
I couldn't.
it looks
I watched.
freaking bizarre. I'm like, I don't know, man.
I didn't even get through the first episode. The level of like part of it was I wasn't connecting with Luffy's personality, right? Because he is the classic, very, very positive anime character.
Oh my god.
And that can be frustrating. And then I know looking at some of
Not
the
a
other
not a
art,
fan of the Pollyannas.
I don't. I'll be honest, I don't get that reference.
Oh, just someone who's really positive all the time is what it means.
No, it's grating. I like depressing things too much to be.
So I mean, dude, watch Cowboy Bebop. That would be the shit for you, probably.
I think I got through like the first 2 episodes before just classic.
I
Oh
hate
god.
I hate to be that guy, and don't get me wrong, the first 4 episodes are pretty damn good. But once it goes to episode 5, it's the fucking stratosphere up from there onwards. It's just oh my
Nice.
god, it's amazing.
Yeah,
But
because like
the second
I love.
episode's really good too. A lot of people tend to forget about that second episode. It's also really good.
Yeah.
The one about the lady who's addicted to those drugs you take in your eye. It's really freaky. But anyway, that fifth
I really like the
episode
Firefly vibes.
is
like,
freaking
that show.
baller.
Yeah.
That's actually, it's funny you say that. That's the reason I haven't watched Firefly, because I'm afraid I'm afraid my love for Cowboy Bebop will ruin the experience. Because
I mean, it's different. First of all, like the Firefly vibes are, it's some people that are a motley crew in a ship against the universe, and that's it. But like,
Well-
they're completely different stories.
well, that's the thing. I mean, it has tropes that appeal to me, like that that crew of misfits. But again, I'm like, bro, there's Cowboy Bebop. You know, that was a profound experience for me.
Yeah,
And,
I can understand.
You know, I mean, Firefly might be, and I like Joss Whedon from what I've seen. You know, Avengers is a fucking baller film.
Mhm.
Just, I don't know, man.
What is there anything specific about besides like, oh my god, is there any specific things that you heard about Firefly that you would be concerned about overlapping with Cowboy Bebop?
Well, no. Well, I mean, you know, Joss Whedon is apparently not a very nice person in real life, but I do hear he does do a little bit of that rape as a threat or whatever, and I'm like, okay.
A little bit.
But I've heard the characters are really cool.
Oh yeah, the characters are really great.
There's a villain named Jubal Early. Everyone keeps telling me about.
I don't remember which one that is. It's been like 3 years. It's really bad, but I'm bad with names anyways. If I had a face, I would remember.
He's like a black dude. He's like a bounty hunter. I think it's the last episode of the series, as a matter of fact. I could be wrong.
Yeah, that's why it's difficult, because I've rewatched the first couple episodes a couple of times in an attempt to rewatch it. Oh, but TV burnout.
No, but yeah, that's kind of my only reason. Not really. You know, I mean, you know, cast looks really cool, and it sounds like something that would really appeal to me. Just haven't gotten around to it.
They're not Cowboy Bebop. I can guarantee that, because they're not. Because Cowboy Bebop, they're mostly like they're bounty hunters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like
Are
that
the
kind
Firefly
of
people bounty hunters as well?
No, they're just a cargo ship.
Oh. Well, how come they keep getting into wacky adventures?
Because they're the main characters.
Well, that's true. That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
It's very much them against the system, and then them against, I don't want to say the horrors of nature, because that's not accurate, per se precisely, but like them against the system, them against the horrors of humanity, them against the horrors of space.
I've heard it gets existential, which I
Oh
like.
yeah.
I like existential angst. So I mean,
Mhm.
which
And
again is another like. Well, Cowboy Bebop's also has a lot of existential angst. So I mean, I don't know.
I mean, hey, at the very least, you can make a video on the comparison of it,
Possibly, but I
and
don't.
then you can, and then you should read Shards of Earth by Adrian Tchaikovsky because this is also Firefly-esque.
So I've wanted to try Tchaikovsky for a while. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm I'm starting a new series on my channel called The State of Science Fiction,
Okay.
and it's kind of me making up for the fact that I have been terrible with keeping up with sci-fi in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, Adrian Tchaikovsky. Oh my gosh, Alistair Reynolds."
I'm one of the former.
Now, generally, my response is, "Have you read Jeff Vandermeer?" But that's beside the point. I don't want to. That's a little too much into the sci-fi rabbit hole that I'm willing to go into today. But
Mhm.
I've heard Tchaikovsky's good. Heard he has. Heard there's sentient spiders in his stuff. I'm like, that
Yeah,
sounds.
Children of Time is the sentient spider book.
There's
Really
some of my more cynical
suck.
friends are like, "Oh, that's stupid," but I'm like, I want to see. I want to see about the sentient spiders.
I mean, it works within the world, and it's like just tell them it's evolution, and they'll be like, ah, okay.
Just
Yeah,
I hang out with a
basically.
lot of really I hang out with a lot of cynical people. It's kind of sad.
I mean, cynical or unimaginative.
I don't know.
I mean, I find myself pretty cynical, but I also enjoy the wonder of fantasy and sci-fi at the same time.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Does cynical does being cynical preclude you from enjoying things or enjoying the wonder that comes with reading?
I mean, I would say yes, but I don't know. I'm not. I'm only 22 years old at the end of the day.
Mm,
You don't have to take everything I say as word of God.
yeah.
But no, it's a weird thing with Firefly. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, Britton, you gotta watch it." It's one of those things where everyone tells you to watch it, and then you're just kind of like, "There's other things I want to watch though." At the same time.
That's me with Wheel of Time.
Don't even get me started on Wheel of Time, dude. Like that's one of those 15 friggin' books long. Do I really want to put? Do I really want to put in the time and effort? Again, what if the ending sucks? I don't want to go
Um,
through all that, just to, just to.
I
As
need
for
to come up with a response to this because this isn't a very interesting. As a like to quote Sanderson, "Journey before destination," right?
well, yeah, but 15 books, man, that's a long
Yeah,
time.
I understand it's a huge investment. I think to a certain extent you could.
Like, look, I may have a lot of time,
Mhm.
but I try to value that time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I haven't read Wheel of Time yet because I have not gotten to a point where there are not a lot of books that I consider more valuable to read.
Oh, I have a shitload of books I want to read before
Hmm.
I ever touch Wheel of Time.
Yeah, that's kind of
I'll
why
read
I just
Malazan before I read Wheel of Time.
yeah, I think I value my time and I value my friends' time. So I think if I were to have friends that were like, "Hey, let's sit down and read this," because like so one of the experiences that I loved about reading through Realm of the Outerlings was reading it with a group of people and getting able to sit down and
That's
discuss
another
with it.
one that seems to be making the rounds on
It's
BookTube.
always making the rounds.
And I'm all like, you know what? Because I'm one of those guys, because I'm one of those hipsters. I mean, you might look like a hipster, Pete, but I am the hipster of YouTube, it seems. Because, like, I try to wait things out before I read them. Though I'll
Hmm.
make exceptions. Like I finished up the first Law last year, and I really
Hmm.
enjoyed that. And I read Gentleman Bastards last year, and I really enjoyed that as well.
Nice.
So that's some good shit. But like when I hear like Realm of the Elderlings, I'm like, you know what? I'll wait. I'll wait.
It's one of those ones that I don't think ever is going to die down completely in popularity. But I will always encourage people to read it with people because that was a very the discussions that I had with those with Evie and Etha, Derry, Stephanie, Chadia, all the people that were involved. Those conversations were very valuable Um, just to hear other people's insights about what was going on and just explore everybody's enjoyment of those books was just a super fun experience.
So
And I think if I come across a group of people that want to read Wheel of Time and do a similar thing, I would probably do that because I value their time rather than valuing the book, if that makes
so
any
Pete,
sense.
let me ask you something because you're friends with
Yeah.
Evie.
Yeah.
Have you read The Spear Cut Through Water yet?
This month. Literally this month. February.
No, I've seen that book just. Oh, it's giving me a migraine almost. And it sounds like a book that would appeal to me because I like more odd, offbeat stuff
Just
when it
do
comes
it.
to fantasy.
I don't just do it and make Evie happy.
But I have to put it on my list, you know? I have to like think about it for a minute before I read it. Like I can't just pick things up
I
and read
understand.
them. What's the big fuss
I
is where I can half measure a little bit.
I like yeah, I to be fair, I've been not necessarily putting off the Spirit Cuts Through Water, but like I've been letting it simmer for a little bit. I mean, I don't know that much about it, to be fair, but
Aside
it's
from
taken
Evie
a
shilling.
yeah, it's taken a bunch for me to get to it. And again, part of it is I am doing a buddy read with people on a random Discord. So that helps, right? Because I do think it seems like a book that's really good just to sit down and talk with people about. Um, because it's so different and I like doing that. That's what I'm finding I'm valuing more is being a little bit more flexible so I can read more things off the cuff with people that happen to be also be on my list. Because again, I like talking with people about these books, and getting their perspectives and just seeing what people like, seeing what who likes who and who likes what characters, how people different people connect and interact with books. It's almost a humbling experience to a certain extent because it helps me understand how subjective bookish opinions are because we are interacting with art, and understanding how different people interact with that art is just I don't know, it's a fun experience.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, I see like that's actually also why I started What's the Big Fuss because I wanted to basically see if I can get an excuse to like read some more popular books,
Yeah,
and also have a fun and make it fun for me. I didn't want to
yeah.
didn't it didn't make it feel like I was betraying my hipster credentials. But like a lot of my fantasy taste is weird. Like I like Black Leopard, Red Wolf, American Gods, Perdido Street Station. Well, I do like some normie stuff. I do like First Law and Gentlemen Bastards, but it's pretty weird. Like people don't usually talk about that on the BookTube unless you're maybe like Philip Chase, because he really loves American Gods, which I do
Yeah,
recommend. It is my favorite fantasy novel of all time.
I think American Gods. I think it's the because it's in the backlog of Neil Gaiman and it's older. I mean, not no, that's not a reason. It's the older nature of it. I mean,
Or
saying it's
Elric
older is
and like Conan and like Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. I'm like,
it's wild to put that in the same category. When was it published? I feel like it
yeah.
was published in the
So
2000s.
my point being, my taste in fantasy compared to the rest of BookTube is
Mhm.
very off the beaten path.
I mean, I kind of understand because when I interact with people that aren't in like my tiny circle of people that read all the same stuff I do, it's just like, wow, what? Okay, you like that? I don't like that, or I like this. You should go read this. And they're like, I don't know what that is. Whether it's KJ Parker, Tchaikovsky, he sometimes people know who he is, but they don't like necessarily always like the same stuff. Like my favorite Tchaikovsky book is City Last Chances, which
Heard that one looks pretty cool. I kind of want to
oh,
check
it's
that one out.
amazing. Ah, love that book. But at the same time, like there are people within our circle that don't like that book because it's so weird. So yeah,
What are you gonna do? There's some weird books out there. Some people
yeah,
think it's too weird.
weird books are great.
I like weird. I mean, Perdido Street Station was my favorite book of 2022, and that
Mhm.
is a freaking bonkers book. So
I've heard that there's some similarities between City Last Chances and Perdido.
I
Just because like the focus
I'm
on
gonna
the
add
city
that to my list
overall.
then, if that's the case, because I
Yeah, I,
freaking
I
love.
want to read Perdido sometime this year and actually be able to measure that.
Also, the Scar is really good in that same kind of world of
Mhm.
Bazlag.
Yeah, because there's a Bazlag trilogy, basically, right?
Yep, I've read all three of them. They're
Mhm.
pretty good, except for Iron Council. I wouldn't. I might need to read Iron Council again because, and to be fair, I didn't fully understand it. I don't think, but that
Read
was
better,
off
Britton.
the wall bonkers. That was just like, okay, a little. This might be a little too odd even for me. No, I'm a oh god. I sometimes think like that's why I haven't made like a top 10 fantasy series yet cuz I'm all like, bro, have I even read enough fantasy series for that? I think I feel like I've read a lot of fantasy, I've read like
Mhm.
Elric and Conan and Fafhrd, Black Leopard, Red Wolf, American Gods, but like am I could I get away with a video like that? I mean, I don't know. Maybe
Um,
someday.
I think it's not about getting away with a video. It's just like you have your opinions. Go for it. Like,
Well, sure, yeah.
have you read more than 10 series?
Yeah, people are gonna be like, American Gods, what's that?
I don't think people are gonna. I think people are generally aware of American Gods. It's just either intimidating or just they haven't heard as much about it, so they may not be as interested in it. Because it is a fairly unique book. It
Also, I
feels
haven't
like
really put that list together at all yet because I'm like, oh
that.
gosh,
I,
there's
I think I
so
feel like
many.
that's probably what's holding you back more.
Yeah, putting the list together. Oh my
Because
god,
that's where I'm at is putting together. I could probably roughly put together a bunch of series that are, top 10, top 15.
that are like
Ranking them
baller.
is the intimidating part. To be like, I love these series so much, but you're better than that. I know my top series of all time. That's it. That
Well,
is Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu.
oh, I thought you were
That
gonna
is an
say
amazing
Malazan.
series. No, it's not Malazan. I love Malazan, but it's not my favorite series of all time. I'm not.
I don't know. I would have
I
thought
would
from your
associate.
beanie that like I may have thought from the beanie that you would have liked. I don't know. You seem like the type that really likes Malazan the most. I could be wrong.
I, I like Malazan. I like it a lot, and it's definitely in the top 10. But I connected on a so much more personal level with Dandelion Dynasty because of what it's about and the themes of it are
I do
something
want
that
to
are like,
try that at some point because I'm always trying to go for books from like because I had a pet project a few years ago where
Mhm.
um I was trying to read from more diverse authors. I didn't do a very
Yeah.
good job at it because well, I got really depressed. It was during COVID time. So,
Oh
it
yeah, I
wasn't a
feel that.
fun time. But you know, if you know,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's like where like to be doing that. That's a good goal if you want to bring that back.
I
Um,
do. I really
if
do.
you want something shorter and you want a taste of how emotionally punchy and interestingly thought wise that Ken Liu can be, I would definitely recommend picking up the Paper Menagerie short stories.
Yeah, I
Just
saw
because
Matt
you
on
have a
books was really he was really like, yeah, that book's
yeah,
good.
it's a nice mix of um Ken Liu repeatedly punching you in the gut emotionally because he wants to make you sad and hurt you, and oh, that's an interesting idea.
You know what's we were talking about Realm of the Elderlings earlier,
Mhm.
and my friend Jason, same guy who basically became a meme because he doesn't like Gardens of the Moon. He didn't care for Realm of the Elderlings either, and I'm like, wow, I've heard that one has like good. That sounds like because he's
He
always
stopped
talking
at
about like
Assassins Apprentice, didn't he?
characterization, and I'm like, I've heard Realm of the Elderlings has good characterization. He's like, well, I didn't see it when I read it, and but then again, he said he read it like 20 years ago, and his memory isn't that great. So
Oh, he might have changed.
I'm fucking weird. I can just remember shit from like 10 years
How
ago.
did he say how much of it he read? I'm curious.
Don't know. I think he just read the first book of
Okay, yeah, that's why. So the first book is this character Fitz, and it goes up to when he's like 16, I think.
hmm
And we see there are three different trilogies that involve Fitz, and you get him all like you like he's an old man in the last one he's in
hmm
type of deal.
Also, I am more like open to the idea of Realm of the Elderlings. Because yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you could say it's 16 books technically, but like it's a trilogy
It's
technically.
digestible. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, I think I can do that because I tend to stick with trilogies,
Yeah.
or if it's a longer series, like something like Game of Thrones or Harry Potter. I really like Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. I mean, I'm not against longer series, just make it worth the
Yeah.
time.
It's very much digestible in that way. And then you kind of get refreshed as well, because like so Tawny Man, Fits in the Fool, and Farseer, which that's out of order. Um,
Oh yeah,
that's all fits.
yeah. Speaking of my
And
fantasy taste, I really dug the Vor last year. Nobody's heard of that freaking book. I mean, except maybe
the
for Raph
Vor,
Blue Text on.
I know Vor as a word from Tumblr, and that is a concerning word from Tumblr. What is that book about?
Well, glad
Do
you
I
asked.
want to know? Is it that type of
Wait
book?
a minute.
Because
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What does the Vor that you're thinking of mean?
it will. No, I'm not talking about what that's going to mean, because it's like that bad. It's
It's
just it's so
probably not that. It's about a
it's
mystical
really
forest.
okay. Cool.
It's about a mystical forest in Africa. And it's really, I mean, I won't say that it was one of my favorite things, but I really dug the shit out of that book because it's like, again, I like really weird, offbeat stuff. It's,
Yeah.
here, I'll send you a message on,
Who's it by?
what?
Who's it by?
Brian Catling, the Vor. Oh, hold on. Vor. There, I sent you a message.
Ah, yeah, that's not spelled what I thought it was. Anyways. Yeah. Don't look up what I was talking about.
I wasn't.
I'm also saying that for the audience's benefit,
Oh.
because you don't.
I also see you've covered self pub, which is also a goal
Yeah.
on my channel this year. I want to try more self pub. I actually have some back here. My friend Joe Byrne. I really would like to get to Wistful Ascending
Mhm.
this month, but that's one of those I'm not entirely sure I'm going to get to it, but I would really like to if I have the opportunity.
Yeah.
That's one I have a little more wiggle room though.
I've heard some good stuff from people that I trust about that one, so it's good. Which like as much as I can say that it's
also
yeah.
want to try The Legend of Blackjack at some point because like that sounded like something I would enjoy.
I think I read through like half of that one, and it hit me at the wrong time. That one's nice and campy. So
yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard it's very fun.
yeah, very fun. I
Not
think I
to
would.
take it too seriously. So I'm like, okay.
I think having reread Percy Jackson recently, there's some comparison there. In terms of,
Oh
I don't want to
jeez,
just
Percy
say
Jackson.
vibes.
You mean Harry Potter in Greek mythology?
Sure. I mean, Percy. To be fair, Percy Jackson was my Harry Potter when I was a child.
Okay,
So.
fair enough. All right, I won't bash it too much. Yeah, I don't want to give you emotional damage.
I freaking love Percy Jackson, and it holds up, nostalgia included. But
Heard the show's pretty good. Though I'll admit,
yeah,
and don't laugh, but
okay.
I actually, like in a guilty pleasure way, really enjoy the movie.
I'm not gonna laugh. I'm just gonna want like to put. The movie is like utter garbage.
It's stupid, but I love it. It's so bad. It's one of those.
Well, I'm glad that you acknowledge that it's bad.
Oh, it's
Okay,
not a good
you
movie.
enjoying
It's a
you
stupid
enjoying
film.
it because it's a bad movie. I can live with that. You thinking it's a good movie, I don't know if I can be friends. Like,
no, it's not that. It's more just like this film is stupid, and I'm having fun with it being stupid. Like I can.
okay.
Like I genuinely like enjoy watching it, even if it's not a good. It's not a good film, but
I respect that.
just, I just saw you dying on the inside when I mentioned that.
I have a friend who before my friend's favorite thing to mess with me. He's not a book reader. He's like, I really like the Percy Jackson movie. Like that was one of his favorite things to mess with me about, because he knows how much I hate that movie.
Yeah, but no, it like look, I get it's a stupid ass film. Like I can't
Mhm.
take the part where Grover is dancing around in Vegas to Lady Gaga, okay? I cannot take that seriously. But it's
Funny
fun.
thing.
It's fun. I enjoy its stupidness though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Like Uma Thurman as Medusa, great shit. I love it. It's stupid in a really fun way. And
but it trashes the book. And it doesn't get any of the it doesn't it just it is such an utter disservice to everything that the book does
would
that
you
it
say it's a
doesn't
complete
deserve to
disgrace
exist.
to
Yeah,
Percy Jackson? Have you
absolutely.
watched the show? Because I've heard the show's pretty good.
Yeah, the show's pretty good. Rick oversold it. The author, Rick Riordan, Uncle Rick, he oversold the show, to be honest,
Mm.
to the fans, because he did make a fair bit of changes. Some of the changes I understand. Some of them I definitely don't agree with. Um, I think he definitely gave the adaptation a fair shake, and there was like a, I am less salty about it than some other people. Like there's a very specific subreddit where all the
Really, I've
salty
heard
people
most
have
people
congregated.
were, well, most people I've seen anyway,
There is
who were
one
liking it.
subreddit where all the salty people are.
Oh well, that's
That's it.
subreddit, dude. That's Reddit.
It
Like you
is.
can't
It
trust Reddit.
is. I understand, but like I was in that subreddit too much not to participate, but to read, and I needed to I unsubscribed from that
Also,
subreddit
I'm just
because
not a big Greek mythology, but I'm more of a Norse guy. Though I've heard that
yeah,
Riordan does play with Norse myth and some other
he
books.
does. That's where I get issues with his writing. So one of the things that he did was he did Greek, Egyptian, and Norse, and the biggest mistake that he made was putting them all in the same world. I think that was one of his stupidest decisions, um, because it limited what he could do. Especially in the first in Percy Jackson and the Olympians, those first 5 books.
Still thinking about the movie.
Yeah, no. Uh, one of the charms of the first 5 books is the banal absurdity of it. Like it's urban fantasy, so you have hi Medusa's running a gas station slash
Wait,
whatchamacallit
I thought
thing.
Percy
Like,
Jackson killed her though.
they come back, but like so monsters can come back because Tartarus. They go back to Tartarus, reform, and come back. But this is like in the first book. She runs like a combination gas station and uh stone shop or whatever, stone gargoyle shop basically, and that's her cover or whatever. And then there's the mist where mortals can't see monsters, right? And there's so many situations where you go into something that seems like an utterly mundane situation that turns out there's a monster there. And because he set the Egyptian mythology and the Norse mythology in the same world, the later adventures for Egypt and Norse mythology had to go into other realms, right? Instead of maintaining that mundane's that's a better word than banal, mundane absurdity of just those myths are here, right? Like it's similar to American Gods in that manner where
I was about to say, well, if that's the case, I just go read American Gods because it just does the
yeah,
concept better.
but that's a similar concept. I think it's a great concept. Like you don't have to like be the same. Like it's a completely different vibe. Like it's a middle grade book, and Percy's the sassiest thing alive. Like it's completely different,
Bro, you should
but
read
it's
Harry
still
Potter, my guy.
that's the writing is so mid, my guy. I'm
Shut up.
sorry.
Get
Like
out of here,
she
dude.
didn't start world building until book 5,
Okay,
sir.
I'll give you that. The world building is not great, but get out of
Exactly.
here, bro.
I'm a
Harry
world
Potter's
building
the
buff.
shit.
What do you think? Why do you think my opinion about Harry Potter is?
Get out of here, bro. Harry Potter's freaking amazing. Though I will
I
admit, the
respect
world
Harry
building
Potter.
is not the best thing in the world.
I respect Harry Potter not for her writing, but for what she did for the genre.
I'll give you that.
That's what I'll give you. Like that's it. I'm not a fan of her writing. I'm not a fan of her world building. I I read it at like 15 or 16 too,
Can't
so like
believe
that
you
was a
like
factor.
Percy Jackson over freaking Harry
Dude,
Potter.
Percy Jackson caught me at the right age, at the right time, and I was like, "This is freaking
And I
awesome."
was, I'm willing to give you that. Okay, I'm not gonna bash you for that, but
I'm
like,
sorry, but like a dude, like comparing Harry Potter and Percy Jackson. Harry Potter is just like this bland character that inherits a lot of money because why not, and like is the most. He suffers abuse from his parents, and then he's like, "Hi, all these people
Percy
love me." And all this
Jackson gets abused by his
Percy
stepdad. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but then he goes and fights monsters. There's so much. I feel like
So
there's
does
so much
Harry
more
Potter. He
agency.
fights a freaking, he bites a
Harry-
basilisk, dude.
His friends force him into it, and he's a terrible friend. Harry Potter is a terrible person.
Oh
He's a
my
bad
god.
friend.
Oh my god.
They would not be friends in real life.
Oh my god. My god, I can't even.
Percy Jackson actually has meaningful relationships that evolve in a realistic way over time to the point that they still hit today.
Oh my god.
Like rereading it, I'm like, wow, this is a realistic
we're gonna
and
have
like
to we're gonna have to do the shouting match over
Like,
Harry Potter versus Percy Jackson at some point.
at some point. I'll have to do my more research to come up with all the dirty secrets from whatever. All the talking
It's
points
because
that
she's
I've
a
forgotten.
transphobe, isn't it? It's because she's a transphobe.
No, it's not. I don't care.
You
Like,
don't care about that?
like, in relation to my enjoyment of the books, I don't care about that.
Okay, fine. I'll give fine.
Like it's
It's
not
still Percy Jackson is still fucking Harry Potter with a freaking Greek mythology, my guy. Like that's all I gotta say.
it's so much more.
Then again, I haven't read it in a very, very long time, so maybe someday I'll go back to it.
It's good. It's really good,
But no,
in my opinion.
some. Nah. But I remember being like, "This isn't Harry Potter. Get out of here." Also,
See,
again,
that
I'm
affected
not
your
a big
enjoyment.
Greek mythology fan, so it's
Yeah,
kind
when
of
I was younger,
lopsided
I
against
was
my
so,
favor
like,
of enjoying it.
yeah, but like at the same time, like he explains a lot of the Greek mythology as well. So like knowing Greek mythology, like especially as a kid, like that's not something that like he relies upon.
Okay, I mean, there's some of them I like. Like I like the labyrinth. Then again, I like labyrinths in general.
That plays a part in book 4, the Battle of the Labyrinth.
Then again, well, I like labyrinths in general, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, it's
You know what to sell me about a book? It has labyrinths in it. Like if you can.
You read 4. I mean, so these books.
So you want me to read through 3 books of Harry Potter with
I
fucking
read
Greek
through the
mythology
first
to
one in
get
like
to
2
one
hours.
with labyrinths?
They read so freaking fast, man.
All right, again, maybe I'll try it again at some point, but
Yeah, it's yeah, it's a good series. I will die on this on Percy Jackson's Better Hill. I will absolutely die on that hill.
Going back to Self Pub. I also see you covered Voice of War, which was actually chosen because I put out my second What's the Big Fuss today. And one of the books that was chosen was Voice of War. So
nice.
Yeah. I have a weird thing with. I'm actually going to talk to Bookborn on this on this show. That's been going on. I've been meaning to do that for a while, and then she's like, "You want to do it on the 6th?" I'm like, "Great." But
awesome. Yeah,
I had a friend who had a bit of a beef with Zach Argyle of sorts, so it's been kind of.
I am aware.
It's kind of stupidest. It's kind of awkward, kind of like, oh man, am I gonna? I mean,
yeah, I don't.
From what I've heard, it doesn't seem like the type of fantasy that would appeal to me, but I could be wrong. I try to be open-minded about things.
Yeah,
now considering our spat we had about Percy Jackson, I don't always do a good job at that, but nonetheless, I try. That's the 2 words here that you should pay more attention to.
I don't think that Twitter post should have been made, to be clear.
By him or her?
By him.
Yeah, I mean, I won't name names here for privacy.
We know what we're talking about.
Yeah, but we know who we're talking about here. And
we know who we're talking about.
But yeah, it's sort of an awkward situation where I'm like, yeah. Well, it's not as awkward because I'm like, this doesn't seem like it would appeal to me much anyway. But it's more awkward now that my friend and Zach Argyle had a spat on Twitter.
The funny way our lives go sometimes.
Yeah, but I saw you reviewed it. What do you think of Voice of War?
I thought it was pretty good. I connected with the characters. I need to do.
What do you think of the Garens? That's the real meat of the question.
I don't care about Garens. I'm sorry. Like when it comes down to it. All right. So when it comes down to it, authors are around not to follow rules, but to convey meaning. If they can convey meaning, I don't care if they break rules.
I
This
was
is
just
coming
screwing
from
around when I said that. By the way,
Anyways, sorry.
I was being
thought
very
about this question
facetious
too much.
there.
I apologize. I
No,
took
it's
it
okay.
seriously. I am not someone who goes around and sees a lot of um, writing mistakes in the books. Like I honestly don't pay attention to that. The only time that, because if you're not looking for it, your brain is going to fill in the gaps a lot of the times. Some people are more aware of it, and like that's on them. That's just how their brains work. I am not someone who is hyper aware of either just all of the rules of creative writing or whatever that we've made up or all that other stuff. I just enjoy reading. It's just what it is.
No, but but yeah, no, it's yeah, it's a little, little weird. It's
Mhm.
little on the awkward side. No, but yeah, so that happened, and I'm like, well, that's okay. Because I try to stay out of drama, but sometimes it rears its
I mean,
ugly
when it
head.
comes down to it, if you can separate, that's a bad comparison because this is nowhere near the same level of things. But if you can separate J.K. Rowling from her work,
Well, yeah, sure, but like this is a little more personal.
yeah,
Because
because
this
you're
is from
friends with the
someone
one
I
who had
actually know.
it's like J.K. Rowling came into your house or came into your friend's house and said you shouldn't exist or something.
Yeah, it's like if I was at a trans friend's house and J.K. Rowling started like insulting, like yeah, that would be kind of a different situation there.
Yeah,
But
that's understandable. I mean,
no, but I mean,
very different in terms of scale of insult, but
no, but yeah, that was an incident that happened, and
yeah.
it's something I've been grappling with ever since I've saw. It's funny, ever since I've seen that little spat, I've been considering a lot about self pub and traditional pub because I wrote a book a while ago,
Mhm.
which I'm still kind of screwing with. Don't know what I'm gonna do with it yet, but
Yeah.
I've heard some people say go to self pub route, and it does look pretty sexy. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's
Mhm.
you don't have to wait. Well, you don't have to. Well, I don't think it's a waste of time, but like, I don't know if waste of time is the best phrase to use, but I don't know if I want to sink a lot of time into something that's not guaranteed.
Um,
But then
I
at the
mean,
same time,
if
you
you
might
think,
not get the
do
same
you
numbers
do
that
you
you do
think
if you.
traditional publish is guaranteed? Because that's also a misconception as
Oh no
well.
no no! That's what I'm saying. TradPub is not uh, a done deal.
Yeah,
But at the
trad
same
pub, it's
time,
luck.
self
It's
pub
still
ain't
luck.
either.
So the way I look at it is, it's luck versus responsibility. If you are fine with just throwing it out and letting someone else and trusting, if you are, your work is pitching it in traditional publishing, from what I understand, writing the book and pitching it. And if you can get it pitched and you can get an agent, I mean, your life isn't made if you get an agent. And then you happen to be in the right place at the right time, basically for your traditional publishing person, for your editor to pick it up. It's a lot of luck. And then there's so many other things that are still like, yes, traditional publishing will offer you connections and they will offer you a lack of responsibility because it is on them to do a lot of things. There are still other things that you could probably do to promote it. And it depends on where on the list you land, like whether you're like a mid lister or a top lister or whatever the terminology is. Like how much do they like your book? On the other hand, with self pub, um, the responsibility is all on you, right? And
Mm.
you have to understand how all of it works. So neither one of them is really a guaranteed deal. It's just it is about the amount of work that you like. If you're willing to put in the work, you could probably do well self pub, and you have to understand every facet of it. But you're probably
I
you
mean, one of the arguments
proportion.
my friend has told me to try and steer me away from self pub, because
Hmm.
I've thought about doing self pub, because the book I wrote, it's a very niche thing. Like,
Hmm.
it's based on the 1700s. There's no like sexy like Sandersonian magic or anything like that.
Hmm.
It's just, it's kind of a throwback to like older fantasy, like,
Yeah.
like Elric, for instance,
Okay.
or, Conan. I'm like, I don't think, and this book is like 250 something pages, or it's like I don't know the words, like 80,000 words maybe, just over that.
Hmm.
I don't know if Orbit takes books that are under 500 books that are under 500 pages. I mean, not 500
I
books.
mean,
My God.
they take novellas and stuff like that,
But
so it's entirely possible.
but and she's
I
all
think
like, "Well, I don't want you throwing your writing away, though." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I know
authors
you're
throw
not
away
an
their
expert on it, but
so no, I have opinions, but I'm not an
I
expert.
mean, you've shown yourself to be opinionated, so
Yeah, thank you. We all are, right? I
opinion
think
away.
so. One, authors throw away works all the time. Don't be afraid to throw away your work, and I say that as like a don't be afraid to abandon it and try to write something else. Because a lot of I think the authors that I admire tend to have written many books before they actually like publish one, whether it's self-published or not. The authors that I most like, Tchaikovsky and Sanderson, are up there, right? Both of them are authors and this is the track that I want to follow. Is I want to write several books before I actually do that because um, what you're really aiming for is self-awareness. You are aiming for self-awareness about your writing, and you can get that self-published or trad published. You could get that either way. Like it is entirely possible. Um, Self-publish, it relies mostly on you either hiring really good editors that can slap you around a little bit, or having friends that are not afraid to slap you around and tell you your writing's terrible. Because like unless you are somehow a writing prodigy, your writing is probably terrible.
You're probably right. I'll
So like
admit, I definitely when
that
I
is some.
wrote my book, A Plague of Nightmares. Let me
Mhm.
tell you, I can tell you right now. Even I know it's not a masterpiece. But then
Yep.
again, it was the first draft, so it's not meant to be.
Yeah. So yeah, and you got your first draft done, which is great. So you have to be willing to say this writing is terrible, and you have to be willing to figure out how to make it better. And that can come from friends or a writing group. Writing groups are great, or it can come from editors. It can come like you have to be willing to say, a, this writing is terrible. B, you can also have to be willing to say this book is terrible. I think
Well,
because
when I wrote A Plague of Nightmares, I'm like, I think this story's pretty good, but
Mhm.
I don't know if it's written the best. I
I
don't
don't
know,
know.
man.
It's one of those things. Like you I say that also as like there are definitely people out there that probably aren't aware of like this is all part of my plan basically. This is coming from my perspective of how I want to progress
Are
as a
you thinking
writer
of
and how
self pubbing, or are you thinking of
I think I would have to build up a financial nest egg to self pub because
Yeah,
I would want
that's
to
also another
there
thing. Cause
there
I'm
there is
like barely
you can
anyone knows me on BookTube, so
yeah you would have to me um I would want to go all in if I wanted to do it because like I don't make much money and there is a financial incentive
really, I
here
thought
for me
accounting
to make
would
money.
would pay pretty good.
I work for a church,
Oh,
so I do not make a lot of money.
oh,
Uh, so that's completely different. If I went into more traditional accounting, I would make more money, but yeah.
um,
So there is a financial incentive for me to want to go all in with this publishing, so I can do a decent job of it.
well, you
Um,
could have just said that, and because like when I think of accountant, I think of like being at like a bank or something.
No, I worked with an audit firm for a few years, and then now I work for the church I grew up in. just because like they needed an accountant, and it was an ideal job for me because it gave me a lot more time. And I didn't necessarily, I don't, I'm not at a point in my life where I need a lot of money. But I would not mind, especially because of BookTube, I would not mind
Do
making
you?
more money
I guess
in
what I
order
was going to
to
ask about self pub. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you again.
go for it.
Um, do you think there like is a difference between them, and not just in terms of quality, but do you think there's a difference in terms of how people talk about them?
Um, I think there's a power dynamic difference.
Okay.
So the first example I would say is the reviewer. The author reviewer dynamic is completely different, and that can change things.
Mm-hmm.
So you've inevitably heard about author reviewer drama, right?
Yeah. In
And
fact, we were
author
just talking about that a few minutes
exactly.
ago.
And even in that situation, like there's different variances of it, right? So if somebody like Steven Erickson comes in, you might have a legion of fans coming after somebody that they were like, ah, this person's bad. Even if the author didn't intend to do it. So the author has to be super conscious of what they do and say to understand that their fans aren't gonna sick themselves on people, but also not like take complete like yeah. You have to be the author has to be conscious of the um, indirect power that they have, and not interacting in the review space with specific reviews. Like I understand where that logic is coming from.
Yeah.
But when you get down into self pub, a lot of the times that dynamic is flipped because a lot of these self pub authors do not have any reach at all. These self pub authors they have friends, they have family, they might have some reach on BookTube, but they don't have the trad pub contacts behind them. They don't have the marketing behind them to get a lot of people to like their book. They're just people, right? And it's something that has helped me review books better, but I think that if you're taking people in good faith, this is why a lot of people will have differences in how they review self pub versus trad pub.
Mm.
Um, because they're conscious that when it comes down to it, you should be a little bit more concerned about trying to figure out who this works for, right? Because if you make one person not read a popular trad pub book, that doesn't matter. Versus if you make one person not read a self pub book, that matters a whole lot. And if you have flippant comments that may not be accurate and just tear a book apart with no concern for who might like this book, you could break that book literally. You could literally break that book sales, um, and destroy an author or whatever. And that's not a nice thing to do.
Well, no,
And
no.
there's some humility that comes along with it of understanding that if this book does not work for you, there are other people it could work for. And with TradPub, they have way more ways to get that book to people who might like it. With
I mean,
self-pub, they don't
one of
necessarily.
my things I've told my friend here about, when we've kind of gone back and forth about
Mm-hmm.
trad pub versus self pub. Again, I don't really have much of a dog in this fight. It's more just like,
Yeah.
weighing my options here. But I'm like, I mean, there's some people like James Patterson and Dan Brown who are in trad pub, and you're telling me that like there's like objective like writing quality, better writing quality. Those two guys are terrible.
Yeah.
So, or at least in my
James
opinion,
Patterson
I
doesn't
don't want
write
to
his
sound like
books
this is a
anymore.
fact, but like, yeah, I don't think it's a black and white
But
thing.
but James Patterson sells a lot of books because people like his writing. People like his stories.
I'm sorry for them, but
But
or like Terry
that's
Good.
saying to you his writing is bad,
Also, he's just fucking lazy. That's
but
kind of my problem with them.
subjectively people like him. So there are other people out there that do like him, and you like it is like this is an art, and there are people that will like things that you don't for different reasons than you.
Same thing with Terry Goodkind. I have no idea
Oh
how he
yeah,
got published, and he's fucking
I
awful.
I Wizard's First Rule was a nightmare.
Though,
Like the dialogue physically pained me.
And also he wasn't a very nice person, but I won't get
Oh
into that
God, he's
either.
a terrible person. I don't care that he's dead.
I'm more about the he's dead. So
I'm glad he's not publishing anymore, and he's
oh
not
my
shooting
god.
his mouth off anymore. Like,
No,
God,
but I guess
dude
my
was
gripe is I
terrible.
don't think it's a black and white issue here.
Oh, it's absolutely not. The way, if you want to talk about writing quality, I think that TradPub, with the
I
wealth of resources in today's market, the level of quality that you could get from a TradPub and a self-publisher, the ceiling is the same. You can get the same level of quality in a self-pub that you find in a TradPub. It takes effort and responsibility of the author in that case.
hmm. I mean, I did read Andrew Meredith's Thrice recently. I actually finished that a few days
Nice.
ago.
What'd you think of it?
It was pretty good. I don't know if I was in the right mood to read it, but what I read, I enjoyed myself,
Yeah.
and I actually would like to have him on my channel again because I had him on my podcast
Nice.
a little recently.
Yeah,
I
he's a good dude.
really, he's a really cool guy, and one of the smartest writers I've met, at least so far in my journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm reading his Calatian saga, and like the scale of that thing is mind-boggling. Like the world building that he's doing, and the stuff that he has planned for the future is just exciting.
Though I did have a bit of an issue. He called it a novella. It's 278 pages. That's a novel. I'm sorry. Like you can say what you want,
I
but
mean, novellas typically are based on word count, right?
I guess so. I don't know.
And also, I feel like the 250 most self-help books would probably be novellas in our scale. I think I could be wrong,
I don't
but
know. I mean, all I'm saying is because when I think of novella, I think like maybe 100 something pages to like 200
yeah.
in terms of
I think
page
it
count.
depends on like I haven't read Thrice yet. I think he might have like spaced out the margins or whatever to make it 250. I don't know what he did. It yeah. It's also like scale a little bit
But
because like
to my point, I liked it, and I thought he has a good authorial voice.
hmm, yeah
And I mean, he has as good of an authorial voice as other fantasy authors I met. I mean, there were
yeah
the misspellings from here and there, but that happens. I've seen it in
yeah
trad pub books too, so I mean, I'm not gonna.
exactly. You can see a lot of the same mistakes that people highlight in self pub. While it is easier to make them in self pub, if you don't put the effort in, you will still see them in trad pub.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's not really. I mean, sure they bug me, but it's not book breaking. I know there's some people out there that might break the book for them, but I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
But I think his authorial voice is strong.
Oh
Though,
yeah.
I mean, I there were the issues I had. I thought the dialogue was a little too formal, but
Mm.
maybe I'll that's a conversation between me and Andrew. You haven't. I don't know if it's similar in what's his other series he's done,
Calatian.
Calatian. I don't know what the dialogue's like there, but
Um,
um
I don't quite unless dialogue is really really bad, like stilted and stuff like that, like Terry Goodkind. It's hard for me to notice to differentiate. That's
well, it
like one
wasn't
of
bad. It was noticeable where it was like it's a little bit formal. It
yeah.
doesn't feel like a conversation at times.
There were some places that it probably felt formal and Calatian, but the
Mm-hmm.
places that I'm thinking of, it was appropriate type of deal.
Fair enough. I
Like
mean, again, I've
so
only
some of the main
read Thrice
characters
so
are like
far, so.
yeah. So some of the main characters are in like a holy order, like they're paladins.
Mm-hmm.
Got paladins and paladames. It's wild that no one's
Paladames is
yeah.
is that a thing?
He made that up. I'm pretty sure, and I don't think I haven't seen that anywhere else. No one else has done that for some odd reason. Like
I'll
it
have to.
seems such an obvious thing to do, but anyways, uh Paladames is hilarious is great. But um the formality of their speech is like it feels contextual when they are formal.
Yeah, it's Yeah, I may have to read more of Andrew's work, but
Yeah,
I
go for it.
liked it.
I think he's
And
got book 4 coming out in
And
sometime spring or summertime. Don't quote me
I
on it,
hope
but
to
that's the
read
impression I got.
more self-pub books this year. I don't know when I'm gonna get around to that, but we'll see.
About that.
Also, I was
I'm trying.
also I was a little discombobulated because he gave me the ebook, and I'm not used to reading ebooks. So,
Amen. It takes a lot for me to make read an ebook.
but I,
It,
again, nothing against any of the people I'm talking about here. These are just opinions at the end of the day.
oh yeah, yeah. But
Um,
like,
and I like Andrew. I liked Thrice. I think it's a solid little book. I may
mhm,
have to read it again because again, I don't know if I was fully in the mood to read it. I just I read it because he gave it to me, and I'm like, all right, I'll give this a shot. It doesn't seem
yeah.
very long.
Oh yeah, free book. Can't complain.
Yeah, I've gotten a couple of free books. Like just people like, hey, you want to review my book? And I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe.
I
Especially when I open the self pub rabbit hole. Oh my god, they just flood in.
yeah. I get a few. I get every once in a while I'll get an offer, but I think the fact that I don't really take them up that much is probably why I don't get that many, and also I'm not that active. Because I've done a few arcs in my time, and I think let's see how many. I think it might just be two because like one of them was the final in the Threadlight trilogy, so I actually got an arc of that, and I never reviewed it because I was in a big slump at the time in terms of making videos. I just never got around to it. One of these days, I'm actually going to reread it so I can actually make a full on review of it.
That
Because one of
happens,
the
man. I had a bit of a
yeah
slump in July last year, and it was not fun. It was not a
yeah
fun time.
no, I usually have a yearly one because of work in like August.
Oof.
But July tends to be a really good month, and then like August comes and I read like two books and I'm like not motivated. It's like oh gosh, but yeah, it's one of those things. I just yeah, I have like I've recently done a little bit better about arcs, but like only because I've been intentionally doing it. I think the deadline sometimes
Yeah.
freaks me out, but
Going back to self pub real quick. Again, but I actually like decided to ask Tori the other day on one of her live streams about like self pub and trad pub, and she actually got kind of snippy. I'm like, I'd never seen that before, and then I texted her later. I'm like, hey, if I offended you, I apologize. I was not trying to do that. And she's like, nah, wasn't you. You're okay. I'm kind of sick of that conversation. I'm like, okay, okay.
yeah, that happens because I think a lot of self pub authors get to ask that question a lot because there's some people that question their motives and some other things and are just like I think the stereotypical opinion of oh you just weren't good enough to go to publishing is something that can really
Ruffle feathers.
that can ruffle feathers at its constancy if that makes any sense. And I'm not saying that's where Tori's coming from specifically, but I know I do have other people that had that has gotten under their skin before. There's a lot of things like it comes like again with going back like self-pub authors take a lot on their shoulders responsibly, and some of that is the stigma of self-publishing that I wish we could get rid of because as time goes on, like we see it now with stuff like with Legends and
I
Lattes.
mean, Andrew
Um,
Meredith told me that there's some trad authors who say they wished they went indie.
yeah.
So I'm like, oh,
hmm
that's interesting. I wonder who that might be. I don't know who that is, but
If you go around publishing podcasts and start listening to publishing podcasts, you'll find a few because a lot of the times the system just screwed them over. And there are a
that
number of
happens.
very if you are willing to take the responsibility on your shoulders, you can do really well self-publishing. The responsibility and put in the effort, and sometimes there is a little bit more there is luck to it to a certain extent, but like there's a lot more effort that is required and will reap rewards than there is in trad publishing. And that control is something that can be freeing as well. And I'm not saying this as someone who's not a self-published author. I will say I just know a bunch of them.
Yeah, I again, I'm trying to get more into the self pub
Mm-hmm.
because I want to see what all the fuss is about. Like
Yeah,
like
I
that
think
series on my channel.
I think it could be relevant to change your approach instead of asking why self versus trad, which is like with a lot of self-published authors, they're probably tired of that question. You could just ask about their experience and how, like, you could ask them why they chose self-pub, but ask them like what have they learned from their experience, and that might be a more valuable question for you to ask
For
to figure out where they're coming from.
if I talk to them in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I talked with Andrew and he put a lot of he had a lot of interesting thoughts on the subject.
Yeah.
I mean, I read a lot of trad books because like that's just what I'm used to. I'm trying
It's
to.
marketed to us all,
I mean,
except on.
I'm trying to I'm trying to get into it, but it's like a whirlpool. I don't know where to start, man.
Yeah, it's definitely that is for sure. Um, I think Spiffbo is a really good resource for that as well. To like get engaged with some of the books that people are like. Yeah, it's 300 books. That's a lot. But even if you just take a glance at the top 10 every year and maybe take a look at some of the other ones, like seeing what catches your eye, that's a really good place to start. Or just start with the finalists from the last years or whatever, the finalists or the victors. Just that anything that narrows the field for a little bit. Spiffbo is a nice place to start, and it's also a nice place to get a display of the variety of self-pub, right? Which is the strength of self-publishing. In that trad's weakness is that they follow trends, they don't make trends, they just do what people like, and taking risks is hard for them.
Yeah,
Whereas in
like Fourth
self-publishing, that
Wing.
variety, yeah, that's like.
Ironically, the same friend I've
Some,
been kind of going back and forth about with Self Pub the other day. I was talking about how bad I thought Fourth Wing was being, and she's like, "Well, it's young adult. It's there's different standards there." And I'm like, "That's a little ironic, but okay, that you're saying that, but all right." Because
yeah,
I
yeah,
try to treat books equally on this channel, or on my channel anyway.
yeah. There's different, yeah, and some people have different standards for what they consider good in a self-pub and a trad pub.
Yeah,
Speaking of,
though,
though,
yeah,
I'm not speaking of reviewer. I'm probably speaking to this friend right now, but
though, yeah. I am starting to get hungry, but I've really enjoyed this
yeah,
conversation. Um, so yeah, I'm probably just gonna wrap it up here. If you have any
sounds good.
social media and stuff you want to shell out real quick, feel free.
I have my Ponderings of Pete YouTube page that hopefully this year I can get back on track.
Nothing else.
That's it.
No got Twitter. No Instagram.
I have Twitter, but I don't like. I have Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that, but I don't use it. Like, if you really want to go, like the links, I think the links are on my YouTube page.
All
So
right then. You don't have like pot. Yeah. You're on Discord, but that's
I am on Discord,
you know.
various Discords.
You can find him on Alan's Discord for sure.
That's for sure. Alan's Discord, Andrew Wizardly reads, Overly Average Bends, Sarah reads. I'm trying to think if there's any more that I'm slightly active on. That's pretty much it.
All right. Well, again, thank you for being so giving with your time, as people like to say. And these are my favorite types of podcasts because there's
Yeah.
sometimes I don't know what I'll be getting into when I do podcasts, and they really surprise me with the depth of the conversation. So thank you so much for being one of those people.
I try. I
Hopefully
try.
that doesn't come out the wrong way. But,
Oh, you're good.
all right.
That's me.
Well, take care, everyone. Until the next episode.
See ya.